Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tardis Zone Talks. We have a special Tardis Zone Talks for you this evening. We have Eddie of Skaro from Doctor TV coming on to talk some Doctor Who rumour and speculation, and we will obviously do that. But first, we're going to obviously talk about some of the stuff that's been going on recently with regards to Doctor Who. It's past, recent past, since the show has come back, so we will discuss that. But I'm going to bring him on. It's the one and only Eddie of Skaro from Doctor. It's nice to have you on. In a long time, pal.
It has, mate. I have to say, I'm very impressed with your title sequence. It's very good. I mean, I quite like ours, but I think that's very good. I should maybe speak nicely to Lee and see if he'll do us one as well. But that's a cracker. Good man.
You should. I'm telling you, he's come up. You should see the ones for the watch-alongs that we have. He has a classic one and a new Who one, and they're absolutely brilliant as well. He puts a lot of effort into them. Brilliant stuff from Lee. All right, yeah.
Definitely good stuff. It's good to be back. It's been a while since I was here.
It is, man, and a lot's happened.
It has.
Unfortunately, not all good.
No.
So I think we'll just get straight into it, and we'll talk about the recent controversy with Noel Clarke and John Barrowman. But firstly, I just want to say on the John Barrowman stuff real quickly. We have found out that he was reprimanded in 2008, and apparently his behavior has been exemplary ever since. So if that's the case, for me personally, I think the John Barrowman controversy, you know, he's at the apologizing yet again. So he's at the apologizing twice. For me, I think that issue is done with. I don't know where you stand on the John Barrowman issue. I did make the point, though, that his behavior obviously was still inappropriate, and you know he was reprimanded for it. Where do you stand on that, Eddie?
Yeah, so I can the two separate issues with Barrowman and Clarke. I knew nothing about Noel Clarke's apparent, indiscretions and the things that he's done. I think from his point of view, from that point of view, it's really just we have to just believe the victims. I think it's that there are too many people corroborating the stories, and from behind the scenes, people, the names that I've heard, I do know some of the people that are involved in it, and I have absolutely no reason to doubt them. So this is not the time for sitting on the fence with regards to this. What Noel has done is, it's indefensible, and it should absolutely be dealt with a full letter of the law. And his victims are the important people there, not people on YouTube or Twitter or our opinion on it. It's 100% down to the people that are victims of it, and if they are still struggling with the aftermath of that, then they need to get the help that they deserve. As for Noel, once it becomes official, if you like, then the full strength of the law should fall upon him, and whatever that means, that's what it means. With regards to Barrowman, I was aware of John Barrowman's behaviour. How can I put it? I was aware of it, and I was aware that one of the many reasons that Eccleston wasn't particularly friendly with him was because of his behaviour. And I don't just mean the getting the cock out stuff. I mean his behaviour in general.
Yeah.
He is polar opposites to Chris Eccleston in every way, shape or form. I've been an advocate of Eccleston's, forever. I have had, people will see that I have never had a bad word to say about him. Even when he said, he turned away from Doctor Who, he thought he was too good. It was never, ever the case. He loved being the Doctor and he loved that role. And as you've seen now with Big Finish, he's taken that into his heart and he's coming back, it's always been the case with Chris. The role and the fans and the part was never, ever the issue. It was other things, and it's nice to see that eventually being shown, and then people need to basically eat their words for the things they've said about Chris Eccleston.
Yeah, I'm one of those, and I have to put my hand up. I was very critical of Christopher Eccleston. Of course, I didn't know the full story, but when I did start over the last, I'd say, year and a half, I have been hearing stories. We actually bought his book as well. Cheryl really enjoyed his book, and he was vulnerable at the time. Of course, he had an eating disorder. His marriage was collapsing. But come here, I want you to dispel something for me or confirm it. Because I have seen a lot of chat on the other side that this was one of the main reasons why Christopher Eccleston stood down from playing the Doctor because of John Barrowman's behaviour. Now, I don't think it was that personally. I think it was all the other issues with at home, the eating disorder, and obviously he wasn't getting on well with certain people, part of the production team, and I think he just decided he'd had enough. But some people are making that suggestion that this was one of the reasons why he left. Would you have a comment on that one?
Yeah, it's not true. Well, it's not entirely true. I mean, it certainly did have, it certainly had a bearing. He didn't like John Barrowman, and he really didn't want to continue to work with him, and that's just a clash of personalities more than the fact that Barrowman's getting his cock out at any point. It was more just a clash of personalities. However, there was, as you pointed right out, he had mental health issues. I was unaware of those at the time. He had a lot going on. I do know that in my opinion, and it is just from what I can glean, I don't think he left. I think he was pushed. And the reason being is that he hadn't decided. I think that's as plain way to say it. He was leaving it to the very last minute. When Doctor Who became very popular, the BBC wanted to tie it up quite quickly, and he wasn't for signing. I think he had a 2-year deal anyway, if my memory serves me right. And I know that Russell T had planned the Series 3 Master stuff in Series 2.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that was all going to be with Chris and Billy basically, and they kind of changed it and kind of made it more kind of David Tennant centric. But David was always there or thereabouts. He was always going to be the 10th Doctor, whether it was in season 2 or season 3. It was always going to be it. And it was kind of taken out his hands because the rumour was that Chris was going to leave. Someone asked that rumour at a TV reporters thing, and one of the execs said that he was leaving, and that was basically it. It came out, but as far as I know, he wasn't really for leaving. But listen, Chris Eccleston is difficult, and he's a hard man to talk to sometimes. He is quite hot-headed. He can go into sulks and go away and all this stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he came as a professional. He was he had this idea of the Doctor being, this war-damaged veteran, with a lot of kind of stuff. And the first thing he done was chasing farting aliens and pigs and space.
Yeah, he didn't like that. I remember he mentioned something about that. He didn't like that. He didn't like that design. There was a few clashes on set. I mean, all of this stuff does eventually come out in the end. The fact that he was blacklisted as well, which would have been very hard for him. And he is a professional. He is a difficult man. And maybe he was waiting to see if the show was going to become popular before signing on that dotted line for the second season. And
I don't think it was that. No, I don't think it was popularity. I think it was professionalism. I think he wanted time off. His dad was ill. He had Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
he wanted time off, and he couldn't get it because the show was so heavily focused on him. And if you notice, from season 2 onwards, there was always a Dr. Light episode, because Russell had learned that, to put his main star through that kind of intensive, workload.
Schedule,
it was too much. So they always put like a Dr. Light and a Companion Light episode going forward. And that was directly down to Chris asking for time off to go and see his parents who were in Salford, or his dad who was in Salford, I think, and hadn't been stuck in Cardiff and not been allowed the time off. So I think that was the main reason, the biggest reason. Also all the other stuff that was going on with his life that's none of our business, frankly.
Exactly.
Was to do with it. But so that was it. There was lots of different mitigating circumstances, none of which I don't think were down to Chris Eccleston.
Right.
And that for me, it's such a shame, because he is such a nice guy, and he's one of those guys. I was literally speaking to him and these people 4 weeks ago, and he's such a nice guy, and it's such a shame that there's a section of Doctor Who fandom who have such disdain for him, because it's not merited. He does not deserve it. A bit like Capaldi, that there's a massive resurgence in the opinion of Capaldi now, and that's worthwhile looking at, because Capaldi was another one who was treated very badly by the higher ups.
He was, and here's the thing: I've noticed that the opinions of some people on Capaldi have changed from what they were when he was on his run of Doctor Who. I've always liked his Doctor. He's up there in my top 3. I call them the Holy Trinity. So you got Pertwee, Baker, and Capaldi for me.
Yeah.
Capaldi is up there without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, Heaven Sent. Some people say that episode is overrated. I don't think it is. I think it's a beautiful story. He commands every bloody scene. He is just absolutely terrific. And such a shame, that when I did like the Dark Doctor in season 8. I did like that tone, but it did cause a few problems. And then season 9, they weren't quite sure what to do with his Doctor. But I think he got it right in series 10. I think he got the companion spot on as well. Earl Mackey. You had that student professor kind of relationship, and it was great. I liked it. But listen, I want to ask you something, because of the Noel Clarke stuff now that's coming out. Do RTD? I've seen some people say on Twitter that they have questions to answer RTD and everybody else that was behind the scenes on that show. Where do you stand on that? Do you think RTD and BBC have questions to answer?
Well, there's a whole Trinity in the first season of Doctor Who, particularly, and it was Jane Tranter. Sorry, it was Julie Gardner, Phil Collinson, and Russell T Davies were the 3 guys on the ground. For the 3 of them not to know what was going on would strike me as odd.
I find it hard to believe. I actually said that in the stream. You mean to tell me that not one of them knew about it? Come on. They're on the ground, and fair enough, someone made the point, well, they're not there on a daily basis. That's fair enough, but one of them or 2 of them is on a daily basis. You mean to tell me not one of them was taught? I'm sorry. I find that myself hard to believe, but
I mean, I don't know if I'm on it. I can't make a comment.
We don't know, of course. That's the thing. We'll never know, though. You're right.
And if they are saying then they didn't know anything about it, I think Julie's come out and said that she reprimanded Barrowman, and that's fine. I mean, you're talking 14 years ago now, probably a bit longer, 16 years ago now.
It's 16 years now, yes, since he was reprimanded, and he's worked for the BBC since. And ITV since, and they haven't had problems with him. Now, there's calls for him to be sacked from dancing on ice, isn't it? I don't agree. Look, when when I heard the extent of the things that he done, I said, yeah, it was all inappropriate. But if he was reprimanded and he apologized to everybody involved, which he said he did, right?
Mhm.
And then he's after coming out again because it's obviously after coming to the surface because of the Noel Clarke situation, and he's apologized the second time. Then to me, the John Barrowman situation is a non-issue. He was reprimanded 16 years ago. He hasn't done anything since then, so we're told. So if that's the case, well, then he's obviously learned from his lessons, right? So move on. I think people,
See,
I think,
I don't know, mate. I don't know, because I think if anyone is complaining about, and as far as I can know, no one's complaining about Barrowman. He's been kind of tied up in the Noel Clarke thing. But people who have had the stories of him, you know, like Camille Kaduri and who have you, that have got stories of him, no one's complaining about it. You know,
true.
I'm surprised. I am surprised if he did anything like that around about Liz Sladen, she didn't chop it off. You know, so, you know, I would be very surprised if Liz Sladen had been involved in any of that, you know, because Liz was an absolute powerhouse, you know, and she did not suffer fools, you know, and she was only in the one episode with him, I suppose, but, you know, there's a chance that, you know, if he was still doing his tomfoolery back then. I do know that things got better with regards to Barrowman when Tennant came.
Yeah, they said that when Tennant was cast, that he kind of, the atmosphere on set kind of changed then when Tennant came along and seemed to settle things down, which was one of the women that came forward said, which was nice to hear that Tennant, you know, somehow was able to bring some sort of normality there. And look, Tennant's doctor, while he's not my favorite doctor in the whole world, he's probably in some of the best stories as well. I do like him. I mean, after Doctor Who, he's done some amazing stuff. I mean, did you see him in Des?
Yeah, how that was, I didn't win an award for that. I do.
Wow, how he was snubbed is unbelievable, and I love him with obviously with Michael Sheen in
Stage.
But he's been doing some terrific stuff. I mean, he's just a terrific actor. But I'm glad that none of that, hopefully none of that carry on was happening when he was there, because that would be, you know. I want to ask you about the Russell T Davies. Where does the Russell T Davies era stand? If we've been told, obviously, by The Guardian that evidence has been handed over now. So, as you said yourself, this is going to play out. So, we'll see if there's any official charges, then they obviously have something there. But where does that leave the future of the Russell T Davies era? Because he features quite a lot, Eddie. Now, some people have made the point that there are known pedophiles that were outed, and there's still movies out there that are still out to this day, and people still watch, even though they know that these people are in these movies. But what would happen with Doctor Who? Would BBC take action, or do you think it'd be, you know, they just wouldn't promote it, but the hard copies are out there and they just wouldn't print anymore or whatever? What do you think?
Well, I think we need to point out that Noel Clarke isn't accused of paedophilia, first of all. You know, just to put that out there. But, you know, secondly, I think, I mean, would you not watch The Usual Suspects anymore because, you know, of the cast and that? You know, I don't know, you know, would you not listen to, you know, Little Richard or Elvis because of the age of the people they married?
Yeah.
You know, there's Michael Jackson, there's a big kind of question mark over him. You know, would you stop listening to Jackson 5 or the, you know, Thriller album? You know, the thing is, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of people worked on Doctor Who seasons 1 and 2 that had nothing to do with that. In fact, we're victims of that.
Yeah.
You know, and that is unfair on them, because 99.999% of the people who work on Doctor Who are diligent, professional, clever, brilliant people. You know, and it's unfair. And I mean, in fairness, the episodes that Clarke's in aren't the best episodes. Certainly in season 1, Boomtown, World War III aren't the best episodes of that season. You know, episodes like Rose and Dalek and not so much Rose, sorry, Dalek and Unquite Dead and Partner of the Ways. Those are the goodies.
Yeah, right. You have a point there. Yeah,
you know, and the other ones with regards to, you know, like for instance, the Girl in the Fireplace, and you know that's a cracking episode. You know, and the Age of Steel ones from the second season, and then obviously comes back at the end of Doomsday.
Yeah,
you know, those are good episodes, but for different reasons. Mickey's not really. He's in them, I suppose. At the end, he's got quite a bit to do in the Age of Steel and Rise of the Cybermen. But you know, it's for me, it won't detract from the fact that Mickey Smith is not Noel Clarke. You know, and this cancel culture that's around at the moment, particularly with new Doctor Who fans trying to cancel old Doctor Who, you know, it's not healthy. So I mean, I think we should all acknowledge that what Noel's done is wrong and should be dealt with, but it shouldn't really affect.
And I do agree. These newer fans are kind of using this situation now to try and have something done with the show, or try to cancel certain people. Even poor Matt Smith was dragged into it. And I just look, when I seen Matt Smith was being dragged into it, I actually did a stream, which was brilliant, because they were saying that the doctor, basically Matt's doctor, kissed a lesbian without consent. So I basically showed them the clip where Matt Smith is in not Karen Gillan's room, Amy Pond's room, right? And she jumps on him and she forcibly kisses him without consent. So I made the point, well then, if we're going to cancel Matt Smith for that, even though he was playing a character on screen, should we not also cancel Karen Gillan then, if we're going to think like that? No, because it's bloody stupid.
If you think about the development of the Doctor, okay, so use the Doctor as a character. And by the time he gets to Matt Smith, someone said, I think it was maybe Stephen Moffat, said that the Doctor, when he gets to David Tennant and Matt Smith, is basically in his adolescence, right? Because you know, certainly at the early parts of Matt Smith's tenure, so he's kind of gawky and he's awkward and he's you know, inappropriate occasionally, and he does things that maybe you wouldn't normally do, and if you look back he'd cringe over, and it's kind of, and it kind of rings back to when when David Tennant speaks to when the 10th Doctor speaks to the 5th Doctor and Time Crash, when he says, I was trying to be all important and worthy and mature when I was young, and it's the same thing now. He's older now, he's getting to adolescence, and that's kind of what that Doctor did. Was slapping Clara in the bum appropriate? Was kissing the lesbian without consent appropriate? Define appropriate. I understand that from an LGBT point of view, that is a kind of, it's offensive. It's the same as misgendering someone and things like that. But if that was the intent behind it, then absolutely. But it wasn't. It's just Matt. But Matt also kissed Rory and his dad square on the lips. It's just a thing that the Doctor does. He's quite gawky and he's inappropriate and he's awkward, and it's all the things that Matt does. It wasn't specifically aimed at that. And then when he's talking about, being that's my girlfriend and slaps her in the bum. Yeah. That's what he thinks girls do. A bit like when he was drinking wine and expected it to taste like wine gums. Yeah. It's all that kind of childish stuff that he does. That he's a child in a man's body, but he's also this ancient alien that doesn't understand human interactions properly. Yeah. It's a very nuanced and clever approach to being a Doctor. So for me, that's all a piece of nonsense. It's someone looking to take offence at something, and I was guilty of adding Matt into the conversation with Barrowman and Noel Clarke as well. I was quite rightly called out on it, and I took the tweet down because he shouldn't have been in that, because one was about a character development and two were about people, and for me they are three different things. But Matt, in my opinion, is up there with Capaldi and Baker as a definitive Doctor, and he should. And I get that's just a nuanced and clever approach to being the Doctor, in my opinion.
We were watching the 11th Hour last week. We're doing season 5 watch along, so he's 4th season. We're doing Beast Below tomorrow. The Beast Below. he's just brilliant. I mean, that scene where he just basically run, that's where he won me over as the Doctor. I wasn't quite sure because when, as I said in that stream, when Dave regenerated into him and he's very foreseeing there. Well, I know that wasn't his very foreseeing because it was actually in the time of the Angels, but when I seen that scene after, I wasn't really impressed. I was saying, this isn't it's not going to work. But the whole scene in the kitchen, that was brilliant. But then, did you notice he actually saved the universe or saved the Earth without his sonic screwdriver?
Yeah.
Without his sonic screwdriver. I mean,
the regeneration scene was Matt's very first scene. He basically passed David Tennant in the studio doing that scene, both dressed the same, and passed them. They had a quick chat outside studio. That was his first scene, but his first, you're right. But his first episode that he filmed was Time of Angels. Absolutely.
Really?
But the first scene that he did was that, fingers and still not ginger and all that stuff. That was his first ever scene. But for me, Matt is a definitive Doctor, and he's got more good. In fact, every story that he's in is good because he's in it. And it's that for me is one of the things that defines a good Doctor.
As Charlotte does say on the panel, he kind of has Troughton traits in his Doctor, which are very good. Goes to show you that even though he wasn't a fan, he went and he became a fan, which is absolutely fantastic. But listen, we've 25 minutes in, and we've been talking about the situation with the recent situation. So I think we'll go into what we came here to do, which is obviously the latest rumors. But first, Eddie, I'm just going to put a disclaimer on the screen because, as you've seen recently, when we've been covering some rumors, we've gotten a lot of
flack
for it. You've also gotten the same as well when you do it. It seems when me and you actually do something, Eddie, we get the flack, but others out there, when they do it, they get patted on the backs. But I want to put a disclaimer up on the screen because people obviously out there still don't understand the difference between fact and rumor. So I'll just play this out and then we'll get straight into it.
No worries, mate.
Okay, we are here with Eddie of Skaro from Talk the Doctor TV on YouTube. Please check out his YouTube channel. He's got some great interviews up there. If you haven't checked them out already, please do. So, Eddie, obviously, we're here to talk about the latest rumors that you threw up. So, I suppose we'll start off by getting you to read them back out again, I suppose, and then tell us, obviously, what you think. Obviously, when we get these things, it's nice to speculate and debate about them. So we'll do that for the next while. And then when we're done, I did ask people on Twitter if they had any questions. So I think we have a couple of questions as well, and we'll end on a couple of questions as well. So go ahead, Eddie. Let everybody know what you have.
Okay, no worries. Well, first of all, before I go on, I just want to mention The Beast Below. I won't get onto that watch along with you, but my favourite line, or one of my favourite lines in season 11 is exactly as season 11. And then season 5 is the line that he has at the end of The Beast Below where he says, "No one human has anything to say to me today." What a great line. And he delivers it. Anyway, Doctor Who is in peril right now. There is a three-way battle for its very soul. And again, I will add the word allegedly, speculation, rumour, all that stuff. However, since before I broke this, I spoke to 3 different sources. And since then, I have had another 3 different sources approach me and confirm it as well. So it is, and quite high level sources at that. So for me, and someone else who's very high level said, I would not be surprised if everything you've just said is 100% accurate. So
right, so everything. So hold on, just to make this clear. So everything that you put out on Twitter, you went to 3 different sources. They came back to you, and they said you obviously showed them the information that you'd gotten, and they have all come back with the same opinion that what you're saying there. There's a good chance that there's something in this. Yes.
Yeah. One source came to me with it. I then got it verified from 2 others, and then I released it, and then another 2 came to me and said, that sounds about right. And a third one said I wouldn't be surprised. So 6 different people who are very close to production or the inner sanctum have told me this, and almost word for word. Before it, within the kind of context of it. Now the rumor is, well, first of all, the rumors are about 5 or 6 in the story. The first bit is that Doctor Who is over budget and behind time. Right now, so it's looking like there might only be 6 episodes filmed for season 13 as actual episodes. There will be another 2 episodes filmed as specials. Those might just feature Jodie on her own. The filming will finish probably by mid to late November, and if going by how it is, they may have to split the season over 2 years. So it will be some at the end of this year and some at the start of next year, or at some point in 2022. So that may be the case. In the meantime, there may be a special, and we say special, but an episode round about in the festive period, going by recent things. That'll be a New Year Day special, and then there may also be a special, to end Jodie's run. Now, allegedly, Jodie has already done a read-through for her regeneration, and they're going to film at least 2 or 3 regenerations in different places. Again, that's just an aside, but that's what's getting said. So what else have I got on top of that? So, beyond season 13, there is no Doctor Who planned at all. There is nothing in the pipeline at all. So Doctor Who will more than likely, at this point in time, be going on a permanent hiatus for at least 3 or 4 years. Now, the reason for that is that there's a 3-way battle for Doctor Who at the moment. The one half is Chris Chibnall, who's in contract and wants to do Doctor Who a certain way. The other bit is the BBC, the main BBC that we all know about. It's got a vision of Doctor Who that's slightly different from Chris Chibnall's. And then the third one is studios who put a lot of money into Doctor Who get a lot of money back out of it, and aren't happy about how the business case for Doctor Who is changing. So unless those 3 parties agree on how Doctor Who goes forward, and bear in mind, beyond those 3 parties, there are stakeholders in Doctor Who, from licensee holders to different creators who all have a say or all have an vested interest in how Doctor Who is perceived by the general public. So unless those 3 main stakeholders agree, Doctor Who will effectively end at the end of this production run, and not be back. With regards to that, there will then be at some point a retrospective documentary of some description. That will be sometime in 2022, and that's to do with the BBC's 100 years of being around kind of thing. And then in 2023 there may be, and again this is kind of vague speculation in the future beyond the Doctor Who production team, so it doesn't come from them, it comes from elsewhere, that there may be a anniversary special, a 60th anniversary special that will have nothing to do with the flow of narrative in Doctor Who at the moment. So it wouldn't, like, if you look at the 3 Doctors or the 5 Doctors or the Day of the Doctor, they all follow on the narrative of the seasons. And like, I think the 3 Doctors opens the season, and and move on from that, and the 5 Doctors at the end of a season, and blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. But the 60th will have nothing to do with the seasons and the narrative flow of Doctor Who. So it could very well be a legacy episode of Doctor Who, and it would more likely feature a previous Doctor. And it is a guess on my part, well, it's an educated guess through things I've heard, that will probably be David Tennant. So you would, and I know that David Tennant and Matt Smith are both very, very keen and being the Doctor again. So I would imagine that you would probably get a Doctor Who episode, retrospective episode, that would more than likely feature a three-hander between Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, and David Tennant, with Capaldi taking that John Hurt role from Day of the Doctor kind of thing. So he'll be the grumpy older statesman, and those two will be larking around. And that's what they want to do for the 60th. And, you know, it will be looking into, a bit like Time Lord Victorious, where it delves into proper continuity, looks at the Doctor's past as a kind of celebration, a bit like Dimensions in Time, you know, or not Dimensions in Time, the Dark Dimension that was mooted a few years ago. On top of that, Upper Boat, or sorry, I should say Roth Lock, because it moved. I keep calling it Upper Boat because that's the one I remember. Roth Lock has a standing set for the TARDIS console room and other various studio spaces that it uses for Doctor Who. Beyond that, it uses a lot of it's prop building and makeup and costume and stuff are all over Roth Lock at the moment. That isn't utilising the space properly because that costs a lot of money. The quote I was given was 1.5 million quid a year to house Doctor Who there. Now that's okay if Doctor Who is producing 13 or 14 episodes a year, but right now it's doing 11 every 18 months, if it's even that, and it's likely to be less than that going forward. So the chances are Doctor Who will lose its space at Roth Lock. So by the end of the production season, with season 23, series 23, season 13, by 2023, Doctor Who will be homeless and doctorless, with no plans at all for a proper season 24. So I think that covers everything that I was told. I don't think I missed anything out of that. So pretty big news. Now, to caveat that is where we sit right now with Doctor Who, allegedly. That might change. That, you know, if one or the other give, if Chibnall just walks away, you know, if he just walks away from it, just leaves it alone, and someone else can take over in time, you know, and basically BBC Studios get their way, and a Doctor, you know, a traditional dynamic Doctor appears again. That, you know, for me, when they say traditional dynamic Doctor, that's a David Tennant, Matt Smith type, you know, with a kind of young heroic Doctor and a feisty, pretty companion, and they go from there. Then Doctor Who may very well be saved into season 14. However, the stink of the Chibnall era is so entrenched in Doctor Who right now. The kind of common consensus is to let it rest for a while and then bring it back maybe 4, 5, 6 years' time down the line with effectively a soft to medium hard reboot. You know, a bit like Rose was, where you don't mention Gallifrey or Time Lords or Daleks or Cybermen. You just have a man in a police box who meets a woman and off they go. You know, so that is where we are. So effectively, Chibnall has done what we all feared he was going to do and killed Doctor Who stone dead.
So the main key element of this for Doctor Who to carry on right now would be for Chris Chibnall to either stand down. Why wouldn't BBC just sack him? Right.
So this is something I asked as well. I kind of don't get it, because I'm getting two basic versions of the story. That Chibnall and Whittaker are both off at the end of the production of season 13.
Yeah.
Okay, they're both gone, right? Now, if that's the case, why can't at the moment they just, you know, put a Toby Whithouse or a Neil Gaiman or, you know, someone in place or Matt Gatiss and continue Doctor Who in season 14? What is the harm in that? You know, how is that possible? But apparently the issue is Chibnall himself, who isn't due to leave. You know, he's got I don't know his contract details, but apparently it's to do with he's still got a creative input in Doctor Who for the foreseeable, and I don't know what that is. So as much as he will end his relationship with Doctor Who, he's effectively going to put on garden leave, so that, you know, if Doctor Who does begin production again, he has a say in it. You know, on top of that, you've got the BBC's own say in Doctor Who, which, you know, is a different way again. But, you know, I always think the BBC get quite a hard a hard time with regards to being, overly left and woke and all this stuff. But then you look at things like Line of Duty, which just blow out of the water, But having said that, I remember watching Line of Duty, I think it was episode 1 or 2, and the white straight man gets chastised off 2 women. When Joe Davison says, "Has the word ma'am left your vocabulary?" So it does infiltrate everything in the BBC at the moment. And that's a bit of positive discrimination is not a bad thing, because it really, really needed it. But I'm concerned that the BBC are be more inclined for a less traditional Doctor, shall we say, where studios just want basically Tom Baker to be 42 again, and just kind of do it like that, But so that is why I think Chibnall has some kind of contractual hold over Doctor Who for the next foreseeable while, so that while Whittaker will definitely leave, if Doctor Who continues, Chibnall will want a say in it. So I think to sack him as well would be. I don't think it's worth. It doesn't really work like that. You don't really sack people. And it's just not how kind of the TV's kind of thing works. Sacking is more like, I'm a great believer in, the football managers getting sacked, and you think, well, just because my striker's shite doesn't mean I should be sacked, but he's made some bad choices. And as far as I can figure out, season 13 is going to be full of bad choices as well. I don't think Mandeep Gill is seeing the season out. I know that John Bishop is on tour from the end of August, so he's not seen it out. And Whittaker cannot wait to get away.
Yeah, so, it's a sad state of affairs, all right, isn't it? Nobody wants the show to kind of go away.
No.
But this is the only way of kind of saving its reputation now at this stage. Let's be honest, it doesn't have a great reputation out there anymore. It's sad, and the decline has been so. It was. Look, nobody's going to sit here and lie and say that under Moffat the show wasn't on the decline. It certainly was, but Chris Chibnall's era just. Even look at the ratings nosedive. It's been stark. It's so sad to see an iconic show like Doctor Who in the state that it's in right now. For me, you say that they can't sack him, but okay, that's fair enough. But there has to be a way of telling this. Listen, would you not look? We'll give you a different show, but will you just move on? Let us bring in someone else. And I don't know how he was able to manage, if that is the case, part of his contract where he'd still have some sort of creative control. That's just madness to give one person that much power anyway, to be honest, because all they are is custodials. They move on, someone else will take over. This man, no offense, but by even listening to him, he has this arrogance about him. What makes him so different to the rest of them that he's allowed to have this sort of?
There was the showrunners are quite it's an odd thing to have in Great Britain. It's very an American way of doing things. I've been listening to a history of Star Trek since the Next Generation onwards, and it's 50 years of Star Trek it's called, and it's an audio book I was listening to on Audible, and it's very interesting to see how Rick Berman and Brannon Braga and these guys all approach the different iterations of Star Trek, and how much they were part of that, the zeitgeist of what happened in each of them, and you can see people like Brannon Braga who didn't have much of a say in Voyager, would then go on and use all the ideas they had for Voyager on Battlestar Galactica. So sometimes it's the medium rather than the people, and what's happening every single year, Chibnall sits down with the BBC and different stakeholders and people that have got a vested interest in the series and discusses what went right and what went wrong. Okay, so in season 1, he was told wasn't enough continuity, there wasn't enough bad guys, there wasn't enough merchandising opportunities. Can you put some lore into it? Can you put some of this? So what did he do? It's almost like he done it for spite. He took the canon and he blew it to bits. Now, he'll tell you he had that plan, a 2-year plan all along, and he could very well have done. And Jodie Whittaker will tell you that that was how he sold it to her as well, you know, and that might have been the case. However, you know, if you look at parts of his era, you know, season 1 had absolutely nothing to do with Doctor Who, nothing to do with it. And season 2 took things that we thought we knew and put them in their head. But then I always feel, and it's just my own personal belief, that whenever he finds a cause, he manipulates that cause and exploits it. You know, so whether it's talking about climate change or racism or mental health, he fails. I mean, we've discussed at length the situation during Can You Hear Me, which even its title is a cry for mental health. You know, at the end of the day, the answer is no if they're an old man with cancer. You know, we don't hear you, we're ignoring you, we're going to walk over here, be slightly socially awkward and just deal with the 2 young people with their issues. You know, there's that side of things. There's the Jo Martin. You know, so Jo Martin is a female and a female of colour that is brought in to be the Doctor, and that should be an extraordinary thing, except that she's a cipher for something else and doesn't really have any background or any story or any logic to her. So she's just exploited because of how she looks, you know, and is wasted, and then comes back during a mansplaining episode, you know, where the Doctor is meant to be this powerful female figure in Time Lord mythology, but the Master knows 10 times more than her and tells her what's going on, you know, and she basically stands frozen to the spot where he goes on about it. And even when she does escape and tries to destroy everybody, an old man beats her to it, and then she runs away. You know, so it just ruins the Doctor, ruins the ideas that he has around Doctor Who, you know. And when they just try and do a normal episode, it actually works. The Haunting of Villa Diodati is a great episode, you know, because they just wrote a Doctor Who. Maxine Alderton just wrote a Doctor Who episode. Kerblam is almost good. Kerblam works because Pete McTeague got the idea of old Doctor Who. So, and his idea was to go, Amazon's bad. But then he realised that Amazon, you know, have to show Doctor Who. So they backed it at the last minute. But it didn't stop Amazon going, well, fuck yous, and put up the next episode a week early. You know, just out of pure badness. What we've done, what? Sorry, we'll take it down tomorrow. You know, so, you know, it's the whole thing's a car crash from start to finish. It's about time he just went, look, this isn't for me. It's an experiment that didn't work. You know, the idea of taking Doctor Who down this route makes sense, you know, for the Doctor Who to highlight social issues, to be more diverse and all that, 100% behind that. But for people to say that Doctor Who wasn't like that before, don't know Doctor Who. This is not new. It's just badly done now. And you know, and way back even, you know, if you talk about you know, empowered females in Doctor Who, you know, the very first producer of Doctor Who was a female. The very first director was a gay Asian male. And 2 of the main people were a young girl and an older woman who was the heart of the show. Barbara Wright was the Doctor's moral conscience.
Exactly.
You know, and if you watch the Doctor change from Unearthly Child to probably Dalek Invasion of Earth, you know, and at the end of, during the Cave of Skulls, he's trying to kill people with a rock, you know, and by the end of Dalek Invasion of Earth, he's talking to people and saying, you know, when someone says to them, you wouldn't dare, he said, yes, they dare, and we must dare to try and stop them. And it's the first time the Doctor that we would recognise as the Doctor is the Doctor. You know, he's got a full arc, and that arc is down to Barbara Wright. You know, and Susan Foreman, that's the whole point of that arc. So for people to turn around and say, oh, the Doctor needs a female, it's nonsense, it's not new. Tegan Jovanka pushed the Doctor every single day. I was watching Monsters of Peladon, and I was quite surprised at how catty Sarah is with the Doctor. You know, she's properly moans at him a lot, you know, and pricks his pomposity all the time. You know, Sarah, and I think the Doctor needed that after Joe was a lot more gushy with him. you know, and you can see that Sarah doesn't put up with any of the Doctor shit, you know, and that's what makes him such a good team. And it's everybody always thinks it's Sarah and Tom, or Liz and Tom, but watch Sarah with or Liz with John Pertwee, and she's a lot harder character. It's quite a funny watch, quite an unusual watch when you think of Sarah Jane now, you know. But Sarah back then was different, and she was strong, and she was powerful, and she was feisty, and so was Liz Shaw. You know, and you know, Zoe Herriot was clever. He always said, "I'm cleverer than you, Doctor." You know, so this isn't new, and the only difference is it's badly done now, so it stands out. You know, and it's so badly done that Jeremy Clarkson's taking the piss out of it.
I know. When you have Jeremy Clarkson even taking the piss out of Doctor Who, you know that the show has fallen quite a long way down. Look, Eddie, I take no pleasure coming on my channel and bashing this current era. It's not what I envisioned for the show. I'm a Doctor Who fan. I love this show. This show has, as I said, has done a lot for me personally. You know, I have that emotional attachment. To see it go through what it's gone through now is absolutely heartbreaking. But I just want to ask you something. So Jodie is gone, right? Do you think? I want to ask you, personally speaking, do you think Chibnall will be stubborn and stay? Because a lot of people have said, right, and you did an interview recently with someone that was saying they were even surprised when he was kind of given the job. He's not a sci-fi writer, okay? He's good at his dramas, but he's not a sci-fi writer. Do you think he'll hold out if this is the case, what's been rumored, that, you know, he might hang on? He's that stubborn. Do you think he will? Do you think he honestly, because you did have said in the past, this guy honestly does believe that he's writing great Doctor Who. He believes in what he's doing. Like, that's the thing about it. He's delusional, basically.
The guy who said that to me in my interview was Andrew Cartmel. And Andrew Cartmel, for those who don't know, and I'm assuming most people do, was the Doctor Who script editor, stroke showrunner.
Yeah, we were watching Battlefield actually last night, and he was the script editor.
He took over in Time in the Rani, although we'll always say that he had nothing to do with Time in the Rani, really, and left in Survival. He wrote the final words that were written.
Yeah.
There are words out there where the sky is burning. Although I did speak to Rora Monroe a couple of weeks later, and she said that she always gets credited for that.
Yeah.
And she's quite happy to take the credit for it because it's a wonderful final. So it was Andrew Cartmel said that. And Andrew told me that, and, you know, go to the Doctor channel and you'll see the interview, it's still there. And he basically told me of a story that he had been treated quite badly by Chibnall at the end of Torchwood. Now, years ago, you and I discussed this on one of our channels about, you know, him disappearing from Torchwood at the end, you know, and not really completing his duties for it. And basically Andrew Cartmel, you know, confirmed that, you know, from us and to me a few weeks ago. What had happened was he had been basically recommended by Russell T Davies to write for Torchwood, and was assuming that he would write for season 3, and basically couldn't get a hold of Chibnall, and then basically Chibnall just, you know, completely dismissed the thought of him getting in. So and there was him and another writer, I can't remember who he said now, it might have been Ben Aronovich, but whoever it was, you know, he had heard from other writers that Matt Platt could have been had quite a torrid time even trying to talk to Chibnall. So, you know, and he had said he was surprised that he got the role because as much as his police procedurals were quite good, his science fiction wasn't great. You know, and I agree with that, you know, and I don't think anything that I've seen in the last 23 episodes that it's come across as anything.
No. His Festive special, though, was an improvement. I had a lot of plot holes, but I did give it some praise. There were some good things actually in that. But
you know why, though, mate?
It was plot holes, though. This is the thing about Chibnall as well, though. I have a problem with his timeless children's story arc. Was supposed to fill in some plot holes, but it's obviously created a lot more. But he does have this problem again. He's not like we used to give Moffat a stick for being too extravagant and try to be too clever.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Chibnall can't even pull off a basic. Like, I mean, he can't surprise us. There's nothing that he does on screen that I say, "Oh wow,
Yeah.
okay, that's you
Mm-hmm.
know." He lacks
There's
that
lots of
build.
wasted. It's frustrating, mate, because not only is there a lot of wasted guest stars on it, I mean, Rona Monroe and I discuss James the Sixth, and the Witchfinders. Now,
Yeah,
I'm an alumni from Glasgow University, and my degree is in Scottish history. And Rona is an award-winning playwright who has written the King James's plays. She's written James First, Second, Third, and Fourth, I think, set of plays. So we know what we're talking about when it comes to James the Sixth. And Alan Cumming is the best thing in that episode by a country mile, and he is nothing like James the
I
Sixth.
know.
And they kept calling him James the First, which freaks Scots out. Don't get me started the day after the election results, But it freaks Scots out because he's James the fucking Sixth,
Yeah,
and he maybe James the Sixth and First. Call him that. That's his actual title. But when they just call him James the First, it pisses everybody off in Scotland. Well, 47% of the voters in Scotland sees us off,
yeah,
and so that for me is one thing. I've discussed at length on my own channel and on Twitter how he fails the Bechdel Wallace test for feminine writing constantly, constantly. I've discussed why a female doctor undermines the role of a female companion, and if you want an example of that, look at Yaz.
yeah.
Yes, Khan should be a brilliant companion.
And
The,
she's
the
not
actress who plays her is adequate as an actress. There's been worse
right.
actresses,
Yeah,
and there's been worse actors and Doctor Who. Trust me, right? She's an adequate actress. She's her backstory is good. She's a young Asian female who had mental health issues, who found a niche in the police. She's got a loving family behind her. She doesn't come from a big fancy background. Everything ticks the box.
yeah,
Even if you want to be, even if you want to be kind of custal and shallow about it, Mandeep is a pretty girl. That everything fits the bill.
yeah.
She should be good, but
But
she dies a death, and the reason being is because she's got nothing to do. Apologise, ice cream buns outside. Do you want a cone?
oh, nice one. Oh,
Other ice cream buns.
1999.
Someone feels something in the 70s. I'll go out for a 10 pence mix up and a bottle of Iron Brown. Anyway, so she should work, but she can't because she can't push against the Doctor. Because
Yeah,
if she pushes against the Doctor, because the Doctor's female, she can't. It undermines the main female character,
yeah.
and that breaks Bechdel Wallace.
Well, here's the thing as well. It doesn't help that her character development, though, is very weak as well. And you are right. She can't really push back against the Doctor. And it does change. And that was one of the reasons why I was strongly against the female Doctor in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't it's got to do with the whole dynamic. You do that. I think Peter Davison did say it right when he made these comments. It does change that dynamic, and he was a bit
Mm-hmm.
worried about it. I mean, his words. I mean, that whole line that he made, it has come true. It's come to fruition. And I mean, this is a guy that played the Doctor that himself was criticized when he took over
Mm-hmm.
because people were saying he was too young. So if anybody knows anything about Doctor Who, it would be him. And he's turned out to be right. And listen, that was my main concern. And it didn't help. I have to be honest now. I have a different opinion. I don't know how you feel about Jodie Whittaker's acting, but I just don't think she has the screen presence,
Yeah, I agree.
to be honest. Now, there has been a few moments during a whole run where I've said to myself, and I've looked at scenes and I've said, right, why doesn't Chris Chibnall? There's her strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's very good at playing um, vulnerable. She's very
Mm-hmm.
good at that sort of, her emotion. When she brings
Yeah.
emotion into it, she is actually quite good. I've said this numerous of
Mm-hmm.
times. That's where her strength actually is. So I can't understand why Chris Chibnall, as a writer, doesn't see that and use her strengths. Everything that he writes for her is actually goes against everything
Who
that
she
she's
is.
supposed to do.
The
He
problem,
banters her at every step of the way, and I just don't get it. He
the
even
problem with
wrote
it
his
is, no,
own
but
Doctor Stu. I mean, look at his first female Doctor, and you brought it up. He brings Joe Martin then in, then that undermines Jodie
with
Whittaker's
Jodie
Doctor,
straight
but it
away.
also undermines Joe Martin because
Martin, yep.
you know
No, they can't work off each other. It's impossible. But then, when I spoke to Andrew Cartmel, and I spoke to him at length, I mean, my interview is about 45 minutes long with him on the Talk to Doctor channel, but I've also interviewed him for my book, Face to Face, and it's a longer interview. And both those instances, and privately between the interviews that we made public, we discussed Sylvester, particularly Sylv. And what happened was at the end of season 24, they all sat in a room and said, what went well? They do it, every TV series does this, right? What went well and what didn't work? What's her strengths? What's her weaknesses? And Sylvester said he didn't want to play the clown, right? So they darkened his costume. They put, well, eventually darkened it in the next season, but they darkened his costume. They changed his scarf, and they made him a different character. They wanted to put the mystery back into Doctor Who rather than just lacking around.
Yeah.
And the next episode from Dragonfire was Remembrance of the Daleks. And the difference between, I mean, nothing wrong with Dragonfire as a 80s Doctor Who piece of fluff, but Remembrance of the Daleks is one of the best episodes ever put in film. And the reason is because everyone learned their lessons and they leaned into the things they're good at doing. Now, the problem with Jodie Whittaker is the funny person in an office who isn't funny at all. Do you know the guy who wears a fucking daft tie and loves Comic Relief Day, and has silly voices, and she's that guy, right? And nobody likes that guy, and I know everybody thinks he's a prick, right? So that's what she is. That in her own self, she puts on a funny voice and does a funny face and falls over. Look at me, and daft, right? But she's not. It's not funny. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But she does, as you pointed out, particularly in Broadchurch, she does introspective very well. She does angst very, very well. If we had a doctor, if Data went, right, take her out of that Rod, Jane and Freddie Mork outfit, put her in a decent outfit, and by the way, the tux from Spyfall was 10 times better. Put her in something else, stop her dressing like a children's entertainer, tell her to stop the gunning, and every now and again a gun doesn't hurt. Look at David Tennant, loves a gun, right? And have her been a lot more introspective. You saw her kind of do it when the Master was around.
Yeah.
And do that all the time. I mean, they took it too far where they actually used the Master's race as a weapon. And you go, oh, for Christ's sake, what have you just done? What the hell are you doing? That's so insulting to people of colour. Just use the Master's race as a weapon against Nazis of all things. And you just
basically,
you just go, what the fuck are you doing? Right? And that to me they just don't get it. And the problem is, and Moffat struggled with this as well, and so did Russell T Davies, is that when you're the lead writer and the showrunner and the executive producer, you need someone to say to you, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't, you end up with wings.
You lose the run of yourself. Yeah.
You end up with wings, right? Because Paul McCartney never had another Beatle to say, that's a bit of shit, Paul.
Yeah.
And you end up with a frog chorus, frankly. Right? And where if you've got them all bouncing off each other, you end up with the White Album. Sgt. Pepper, and that's the difference. So, and the difference between Russell T, Stephen Moffat, and Chris Chibnall is that Russell T and Stephen Moffat were 9 times out of 10 right.
Yeah.
They were good enough to get it. They didn't always get it right.
No.
They sometimes got it spectacularly wrong.
Yes.
But when they got it right, but the one thing that helped them was the fact that they cast brilliant doctors, 4 amazing doctors between the two of them. So, that way, the doctor, that character will always pull that through. So I've always said this, you've got to watch along with The Beast Below soon. Now, for me, The Beast Below is in the wrong place in season 5. It should be where the lodger is, and the lodger should be where the beast below is. And if you swap them around, it makes far more sense. Because I remember reviewing it at the time, particularly the lodger, thinking, why is he acting like that? That makes no sense. He's been the Doctor for ages. He's had all these adventures that's happened to him, and suddenly he's acting like a fool again. He's, you know, it makes no sense. You know, and if you think about how socially awkward Matt Smith is in that episode, put that where the beast below is, and it works perfectly well. He's
you're right.
generation,
Because
you know,
he's still a bit awkward in the
you know,
first episode. Up,
and it makes perfect sense, you know, and that's their mistakes that he made, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with either of the episodes. Beast Below and The Lodger are great episodes, but they work better in a different order, and that's just one of the things that sometimes you're too close to things like that. You know, if you look at things like The Doctor's Wife, for instance, that's a tour de force. Everybody in that's amazing. Everybody in that's amazing. You know, and everything just hits. But it could have been cringy. It could have been awful. And when you take exactly the same, you know, creative group and try and do it again, you end up with Nightmare in Silver. You know, and if it wasn't for Jenna Coleman and Matt Smith, that would have been 10 times worse than it is. Warwick Davis as well, incidentally, is brilliant in everything he's in. You know, but you know, so that's not as bad an episode as people make it out to be, but it's certainly no Doctor's Wife, and that's because 9 times out of 10, Moffat got it right. But the problem is 9 times out of 10, Chibnall gets it wrong. And then you only end up with a Kablam, maybe if you've been generous, and a Haunting of Villa Diodati. And for me, the only two that get pass marks. The 2 Christmas ones as a pair, kind of, maybe. You know, and it's only because they don't have any, there's no agenda to them, there's no social commentary. It's just a Dalek story. There's nothing else to it, you know, but there's nothing new in them. They're all quite samey, you know, and, you know, they make no sense, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, the established continuity of Doctor Who doesn't really work in it, because if you take established continuity, the Doctor just killed the baby TARDIS, you know, and that's a bit shit, you know. But so you know, they don't hold up to scrutiny. But then again, there's probably a million Doctor Who episodes that don't hold up to scrutiny. But the problem is, because Chibnall is such, he loves to go, look at me, look what I did. Am I clever? Listen to my message. If he wasn't doing that, then it wouldn't matter as much. But he does. You know, like Rosa as well is just, I've sat and watched Rosa all the way through with one eye closed, thinking, please don't do this, please don't do this. Because at one point I thought they were going to have either Graham or the Doctor tell Rosa Parks what to do. You know, and I thought, you can't do that, you can't do that. And they didn't do that, to be fair. But, you know, they didn't have anything else for it. So they bring in a space racist who made no sense. You know, the best bit about that was Yaz and Ryan sitting talking about how they're perceived as people of colour, and it's a 2 second or maybe 40-second scene, you know, and that's a great wee piece of writing in there. Just is brilliant, you know, and why that wasn't done more, you know, but we shouldn't be picking out individual scenes in 22 episodes. You should be able to go, that episode's brilliant. You know, how you could, I mean, how long would it take us to list 20 brilliant Doctor Who episodes post or pre-Chibnall? It's easy. You know what I mean? You could do it. Everybody would argue what they were, but you could do it. You know,
yeah, you could, definitely.
Pick 5 good Chibnall stories out of 22. You can't. You can't. No. You can. I would personally say The Haunting of Villa Diodati, Spyfalls episode 1 is okay. I think if you didn't know the Master was in it, it's great. You know, if that's your Professor Yana moment, good for you. And you and I both know we sat on that to allow people the Professor Yana moment. You know, we knew that was the Master and sat on that, spoiler, to allow people to experience that. And me and you had long discussions about whether we should disclose that or not, but decided not to, unless you're Derek, who did. On a call and be like that, shut up, you prick.
Yeah, that was.
You know, but however, 99% of people wouldn't have listened to that and didn't know that we'd said that, and you know, they got their Yana moment. So that gets past March, kind of. Episode 2, false to bits, it's a disgrace. You know, it still makes no sense. I still don't know what happened to Lenny Henry. He's just went away moaning about comic relief somewhere, isn't he? So that made no sense either. You know, up until the reveal of Joe Martin as the Doctor, I thought the Judoon episode was quite.
It was actually
funny.
a pretty
It was
good episode.
okay, you know.
Yeah, I liked
that
what you're doing in that episode as well. I have to
you
say.
know, and if they just kept it as you're doing, that was fine. But
yeah,
for Joe Martin to be the Doctor, I just went, what? Why? How? Where?
Yeah, the reveal was good though. I have to be honest. It was. I was shocked because I was like, I was like you. I was like, okay, so where the first thought that popped into my head was, where does she fit in?
Well, I remember I jumped on your comment section the night before and spoiled that, if you remember right. I jumped onto your comment section. You were doing a live stream, and I told everybody Barrowman was in it and Joe Martin was the Doctor. In your live stream the night before, you know, and so when it came about, I wasn't surprised, but I remember saying I'm not 100% convinced, you know, and the Barrowman stuff was filmed later. That wasn't filmed at the same time. That was to set up the Christmas or the New Year special. That's what that was for. But I back to what we're talking about at the start of the day, I don't think we'll see Barrowman anytime soon in Doctor Who. I think he's blowing the chances of that.
Yeah, a lot of people are speculating that he's in Series 13.
He's not.
So he's not in Series 13. But if he was to be, do you think they would have they'd remove his scenes now with the recent?
So he was meant to be in it,
right?
He was meant to be in Block 1. He was meant to have stayed on with the Doctor at the end of Revolution of the Daleks. The reason he didn't was because of COVID. He went back to America and couldn't get back again. When he did come back, he was in the Dance to the Ice bubble. And obviously, a great indication of what John's doing now is he's here. So he done some filming for the Time, what's it called? Fractures in Time or something.
Yeah.
He done some film, which was an insert. I think he done that abroad. But watch his Instagram, you can tell where he is. He's in America. You know, and he's, you know, and I don't know if he's going to come back later on. He was meant to be in at the start of the season. I don't know if they were going to bring him back. I don't know whether they will now. You know, Doctor Who has a children's program, and at the end of the day, and a lot of people will feel uncomfortable about a guy who gets his cock out on set. You know, been on a children's program now, particularly today in today's kind of thing, and with Noel Clarke already tainting it. That's the
problem, isn't it?
Pardon the expression, tainting it.
It's like, you know, you're being dragged up on past mistakes now. That's the way it seems, you know, to be.
But I think you can forget Jack Harkness and Doctor Who anytime soon.
Yeah, I love Torchwood, man. I was hoping. I was hoping for a Torchwood revival when they were talking about it. I was kind of a bit hesitant because I was kind of thinking, well, for me personally, Doctor Who would have to be healthy first before they even consider that. Because imagine if Torchwood was to get better ratings than the main show, Doctor Who, that would be an embarrassment for the BBC. But listen, I want to ask you, because I did throw up, because I told everybody that we were doing this pre-record, so we've got a couple of questions. I did ask people if they had a question to ask you. So I'll ask the first question. You can say no comment or whatever you want to do. So what does he think of Who apparently going on hiatus after Series 13? But I think you've already spoke about that. But what is your personal feeling? Do you think it will happen, or do you think they'll be able to move on from this and actually do a Series 14? Yourself personally now, not what you heard. What do you think?
I think it will go on hiatus. But I don't think it needs to. I think that there's talk about the stinking Chibnall's era stuck to Doctor Who, but if they got an actor in like Michael Sheen, or you know, a big name, or a good-looking guy or good-looking woman, you know, or someone like Hayley Atwell or Gillian Anderson, or who we've talked about in the past, who's a big hitter, found the right dynamic for that, you know, particularly a female doctor. You know, I personally would go for a male doctor. You know, Adrian Lester's a good call as well. You know, Michael Sheen would be my go-to guy. You know, got ourselves a set of specials, you know, or like went for it with a weekly, like Children of Earth kind of thing, and just went for it with Doctor Who, or even over like a festive period, played 4 episodes like they've done with Sherlock occasionally, you know, and done something like that. Doctor Who would hit Line of Duty ratings easily. You know, Line of Duty is only 6 episodes, but it doesn't need to be any longer than 6 episodes. And if Doctor Who had done a running narrative over 6 episodes, over the space of 6 weeks, event TV, made a fuss about it, big popular Doctor,
it could actually
easily work.
Look at the 45-minute format is not working anymore. They do need to change it up, and I agree with you. You know, you could even go as far as do kind of like a Sherlock type of thing. Do even an hour and a half if you wanted, and do like four of those a season. I mean, and as you said, have a running narrative all the way through. I think that is the way to go with Doctor Who now. I don't think it's going to survive in its current format.
I mean, I absolutely adored the 13 episodes a season. You know, and then it went down to 12, and then it went down to 10.
Yeah, same as myself.
You know, I enjoyed them, but you know, at the end of the day, do you want all killer and no filler? Because let's face it, some of those 13 episode series, had episodes within them like the Lazarus Effect and stuff like that. They were okay, but you know,
they were fillers as well. Yeah, I agree. Here's another one. Why doesn't the BBC and the entire production team not engage with viewers, fans to comment on and dispel confirmed rumours so there's less uncertainty and concern?
So there's a couple of things in that. They will never do that. And you know, by the way, I would quite happily for someone to contact me and say everything you just said there, Eddie, was absolute bullshit.
Yeah,
you know, I would love so. I don't care. I'm claiming it as a speculation and rumor. I'm not putting news out. So if someone told me differently, brilliant, great, go for it. You know, but they don't do it. And I do speak to Cardiff. I will ask them the question before I go live with it. Sometimes they'll tell me, "Can you sit on that?" A great example of that would be when I called them up. I says, "I hear Sasha Dhawan is a new master," and they went, "Shut up! Don't tell anyone, please. Don't tell anyone." You know, and I've had a couple of things like that in the past, you know, where they've asked me to be quiet, you know, but 99% of the time they say, "I'm sorry, Eddie, we do not speculate on rumour. We do not comment on speculation and rumour." You know, and I said, "Well, I'm going to run with it. Do as you will." And that's it. And I think they feel, you know, sometimes I get a phone call from someone who may be higher up than the PR girls, just let's say that people might have heard the name of, not during the Chibnall era, however, you know, and they'll say, "Come on, you behave yourself, shut up." You know, and I'll shut up. I will shut up. I don't mind shutting up. You know, sometimes I have roaring arguments, as with a former brand manager who took my preview privilege away because I refused to say I like Class. He'll tell you it was for different reasons and leaking spoilers, which is not true. But I refused to say I like Class, and me and him had a roaring argument, and he took that away. Him and Mitch and took my previews away. So you know, and he wanted me to punt it, and I said, "But it's shite," because it's crap. It's really bad. And I watched it recently again just to see how bad it was, and it's worse than I thought it was. You think Doctor Who's bad than it? Jesus Christ, it could have been worse. Right? But so that's what they do, and they just refuse to do it. It makes sense because if you think about it, if you think of you and I, if you look at my Twitter feed, if I can ask a question or say something, look at some of the replies I get. Right? Yeah. And if that's just me, I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I've got 3,000 odd followers. I'm a nobody on Twitter. But I get message after message after message. Yeah. I get private messages. I get DMs. I get emails constantly if something comes out. You know, and you get people who think they don't talk. I mean, I had one guy, I won't tell you who he is, that stopped following me, joined Vance in that happy mob, right? Sat and slagged me off on the page down there, realised Vance was a nonce, left his group, come back to me, followed me again, DM'd me and asked me for spoilers.
Wow.
And he was told to take his little bony arse and get to fuck. And when he got to fuck, get a train to Foxville and fuck off there as well. So that's what he was told, you know.
Yeah.
So that's
you're right, man. You're right.
So if that's me, can you imagine the BBC? Can you imagine if the BBC goes, I'd just like to mention this spoiler speculation, they would just get a million messages. So it makes sense for them just to shut their face. They don't entirely shut their face. They'll occasionally say to someone like me or Radio Times or Den of Geek or something like that, can you put that out, please? And I tend not to. So I'll go, I've done it in the past, but I tend not to put that out. You know, so I won't blow the party line. Radio Times just goes, okay. And Hugh, what's his name? Just Fullerton.
Yeah, Hugh Fullerton. Yeah,
he just bends over.
He comes out with some crap.
And you can if he's coming out with stuff, you know it's comfy, Carter.
Yeah. He recently said that the future of Doctor Who in an article a few months back, I think it was last year actually, where he said something about the future of this era could be animation because they might be able to, because the film during the pandemic and all of this. But here's an interesting question actually that was asked. Unlike any of their predecessors, why since Series 11 premiere in 2018 has the current production team or principal actors and actresses not freely engaged, mingled, or interact with viewers or fans at conventions? Well, I think I know what you're going to say in answer to that. For me, it'd probably be, and I'm just speculating here, Series 11 got such a bad rep. Why would they? Because they promoted the hell out of her and the show. Before Series 11 actually dropped, there was loads of promotion. She was everywhere. The show was everywhere. But then it kind of disappeared during Series 12. For me, if I was speculating before I asked Eddie, I'd say it got to do with the fan reaction to Series 11 because it wasn't quite great, no matter what BBC say. But what would you say in answer to that one? And then I have two final questions on the Timeless Children, because that seems to be the big issue with fans in the fandom. But I do have two questions on that.
No worries. So with regards to that, you're absolutely quite right. I mean, Jodie Whittaker and even to a degree Chris Chibnall might not be aware of the fan reaction to the stuff that they're putting out. Neither of them are on social media, so they might not know. So, you know, there will be a team of PR people in front of them smiling and saying, aren't you great? Look at that. That's amazing. And they might consider that that's the case. So they won't particularly go to, conventions and things like that. And you know, their PR team will talk them out of that, you know, and just go, we're not going to go. And COVID's been a gift for them. You know what I mean? They can put up less stuff. They can keep it the road, you know, and they can make sure that the people that are round about them are BBC vetted. So you go in Children in Need and a wee girl bursts out crying and Jodie Whittaker thinks she's Tom Baker, you know, and that's fine. And, you know, and you know, that's how it is. So that they'll be protected from a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so to a degree is Capaldi. He doesn't really know what's going on and never did either, particularly. You know, he just enjoyed getting on with it, and a lot of them are like that. But you know, you'll see people like who do kind of engage, like Sophia Miles engages and gets terrible abuse. You know, and it's a bloody shame that you try and engage with fans, and 99% of fans are arseholes. You know, I mean, a great example of that would be when I done last week. I put a Twitter poll up. I wasn't a poll; it was a question, and I asked the question: Pepsi or Coca-Cola?
I know.
And the answers I got were ridiculous. And I'm like, I never asked you if you like Fanta. I asked if you like Pepsi or Coca-Cola. I like that. And then you get the people who just need to get their opinion out regardless. Yeah. So I don't like either of them, so I won't answer. Well, you just have answered and told me you don't like. I don't care if you don't like them. I ask you what one of the two you like. So that's a silly verse. That's a silly psychological test I played to see how people would react. You know, and if that's what's happening to me, who's a nobody, you know, can you imagine if Jodie Whittaker was on Facebook and says, what did you think of Kerblam? Jesus Christ, the girl will be dead in a week. You know, she couldn't have. So I get why they keep them out, and when they you know, they don't want them to sit at conventions and things, you know, because, you know, you'll get some smart arse will stand up and go, I think you'll find that episode 3, you know, you'd just be like, oh, you're a prick, son. you know. So that's why. Basically, you're 100% right.
Here's the two questions on the Timeless Children. So one asks, will the Timeless Children be part of the 60th special? And then someone else asks, will the Timeless Children be revealed as something else, or the entire run of the 13th Doctor is getting erased, or a possible paused regeneration due to it?
Right, so a few things there, right? The first thing is, in regards to the 60th, that really depends if someone wins the Battle of Doctor Who, doesn't it? So if Chibnall wins and continues along his run, all bets are off, you know. However, to point out the second part of the question, one of the things that was mentioned was fix the Timeless Children. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in this season it was a big old double bluff and the Master is a Timeless Child, or somebody we've never heard of is a Timeless Child, or Joe Martin isn't really the Doctor but is a Timeless Child.
Someone suggested John Bishop as the Timeless Child.
John Bishop's
ridiculous, but
he's a builder from Liverpool.
Yeah, but the Master one has always been one that we've all speculated on as the easy get out of jail clause for Chibnall if this went all tits up. It's gone all tits up. Do you think he'll do it? Do you think he'll make the Master the Timeless Child?
I don't know. I mean, I hope so. I mean, the two things I would applaud him to do was to make the Master the Timeless Child, to also make Joe Martin an alternate universe Doctor.
Yeah.
Both of those would be.
Yes.
I've said from day one that I would be all for a Crisis on Infinite Gallifrey type storyline where you had so many different universes and 1 trillion Doctors, and in that universe, you know, the Morbius Doctors can live all day long, Joe Martin can live all day long, the Timeless Children can live all day long, but you don't mess about with the first 12 Doctors. You know, and if you do that, everyone's happy. I would embrace the whole lot.
I agree, and you know what? I have to be honest, right? I do kind of big up Joe Martin's Doctor, because for me personally, right, I think in the few minutes that she was on screen, she did more to convince me that she was the Doctor than Jodie Whittaker did in 2 seasons. Now, I know it's not entirely Jodie Whittaker's fault, but I mean, those couple of minutes she played the Doctor, them scenes that she was in, she convinced me, man. And I like her Tardis as well. But I agree with your suggestion. I would love this to be an alternate universe. Why not? We can have it. Look at. I've always said that this show, right, can be as big as Game of Thrones if they really wanted to. I mean, by the social impact that I had, you know, I had an impact on pop culture. They really could, if there was a will inside the BBC to do this. You could have the main show, right? Then you could start off your spin-offs, reintroduce Torchwood, right? Yep. Then you could give a show that everybody's wanted for ages for the kids. You could have a Jenny adventure, right? Jenny's daughter, the Doctor's daughter adventure, right? And then you move on. Then you could do all the stuff with Paul McGann with the Time War, and then you could do this alternate universe. They could really branch out and do so much, but they can't get the main show. It all falls back to the main show, because you need solid foundations, don't you? And Doctor Who right now is on very shaky ground. Just a final thought, Eddie. For you, Chris Chibnall's era, how do you think after he's gone, how do you think he'll be remembered to Doctor Who fans out there? What will be his lasting legacy? What will we be basically remembered for?
Well, you know, there's a how can I put it? There's a saying that what's his name, that Christopher Eccleston says. Let me just look it up.
Right.
I have 2 texts, sorry about that. I'm worse than dead air.
No, you're grand, man. Sorry for kind of putting you on the spot there, but it is a question, because you know we are going to be, when he does go, of course, the post-mortem will actually begin, like with every era when a showrunner steps down. there is a retrospective look back at someone's era, and then, you know, people will have opinions the first time they seen it round, but then maybe the second time they see it around, they might have a different opinion. And I'm just wondering where you think he will fit in with Doctor Who fans. What will his legacy be? What will the feeling be towards this man when he's gone? Did he do good? Did he do bad? You know,
I think they'll see the era as a mistake. I think they'll see the idea of a female Doctor as an error. Doctor Who, if it ever comes back in a rebooted or reinvigorated form in the future, will be a male Doctor and a female companion. It's a formula that works. You don't need to be rocket science. It doesn't make you misogynist. It doesn't make you know, an old dinosaur to know that, because it's blatantly obvious of what works in Doctor Who and what doesn't. The four most popular eras of Doctor Who were John Pertwee, Tom Baker, David Tennant, and Matt Smith, and those had a very clear, very similar formula. You know, the best dynamics in Doctor Who have been, you know, if you mention doctors and companions, so Doctor and Joe, Doctor and Sarah, Doctor and Perry, Doctor and Ace, Doctor and Rose, Doctor and Donna, you know, Doctor and Amy, you know, it's not rocket science. You know, you've got 58 years of the show to look at and go, what worked and what didn't. Chibnall's era has not worked, and any demonstrable key performance indicator that you want to look at. You know, we've discussed this ad infinitum a few times, you know, and in reality, I mean, we use the dramatic phrase that Doctor Who lost 47% of its viewers, you know. In real terms, it didn't. It kind of lost about 1.5 million to 2 million viewers, you know, on the average over the space of the last 5 years, including Capaldi's stuff. But that in itself is a huge, huge drop. You know, it's got the worst of, you know, Monica a few times. It's got the lowest rated finale 2 years in the trot, the lowest rated festive episode 2 years in the trot. It's got the lowest rated episode since 1987. You know, it's not done well at all. You know, it split fandom in half or more. It has caused and if you look now, if you look at the type of fans it has attracted, I'm not talking about fans who have been fans for ages and I'm talking about new fans that it's attracted. What are they doing now? They are eating themselves alive.
I know.
You know, they're accusing each other of all sorts of things. They are finding victimization. I'm not saying what's going on with them isn't serious and shouldn't be addressed. Of course it should, but they are eating themselves alive because they are all just looking. They are all just part of this culture that needs to have a cause, that needs to have an issue, that needs to have something wrong with it. And Doctor Who, at the end of the day, is about a madman in a box.
I know.
That's all it's about. It's not about whether, I mean, you talk about, you know, what they need to do, social issues. Well, you need to talk about the environment, like you did in the Sea Devils, or you did in the Monsters of Peladon, where you spoke about joining the common market, you know, or you talk about the horrors of war and the war games, you know, or the genesis of the Daleks. This isn't new. It's just done badly.
Listen, you know, there's a way of doing it. Classic Who was the example of how you do it. Nobody see, when we talk about politics and all, the first thing they throw at us is, well, there's always been politics in Doctor Who. We know that. We absolutely understand that. But Eddie has given fine examples of where they get it spot on. That's how you do it. You do it within the context and the confines of the show that you're working on. You don't try if you're highlighting an issue, if it doesn't go with the show, you shouldn't be really doing it. In my opinion.
If you want to look at I mean, look at Can You Hear Me, right? So everyone lauded Can You Hear Me for being this episode. That you know, and Can You Hear Me had some good ideas. And again, I mean, the ideas of the Eternals were there. You know, they discussed the Eternals. They talk about the Guardians. Some good shit in there. You know, And and even if you want to discuss how Yaz and Ryan's mental health issues run into that, I mean, both of them suddenly had mental health issues, which was a bit odd, almost at the end of both their run, or certainly Ryan's run, suddenly they have mental health issues, which is a piece of nonsense. But you want to see the perfect mental health issue episode, go and watch Vincent and the Doctor, which is a beautiful piece of writing, heartbreaking piece of writing. And that's how you do it. That's how you discuss or bring up that topic. That's what you do. You don't do it like this. And
I don't think it's that Chris Chibnall's disrespectful to any of these issues.
No, it's just not good enough.
It's just he doesn't have the ability or the know-how how to, or maybe he just doesn't have the experience of these kind of things. Maybe he was never bullied. I'm not saying he would never was, but maybe he was never bullied. So he wouldn't understand what it's like to be a person that was bullied. I know what it was like to be bullied. And I have to be honest, what he showed on the show or tried to portray on the show, he didn't do it justice. It's the same with that one moment in the show that really made not just the fans angry, but the British public themselves. It was the comment with Graham O'Brien, when Graham O'Brien, his concerns, and this shows his lack of experience or his lack of knowledge, or maybe he hasn't went through these kind of situations, because for the Doctor to just turn around and say that they're socially awkward. Now, that wasn't Jodie Whittaker's fault, right? But still, I'd still question her and say, well, if she looked at this line, come on, surely you would have known.
There was a rumour that
it was bang out of order. Now, BBC tried to they came out with an apology, but even then, they tried to kind of justify it. And again, this is what's wrong. It's not right. That's not how you deal with the issue. I'm sorry.
There was a rumour Bradley Walsh walked off set.
Wow.
In series 12. And I would not be surprised if it was that episode.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It might have been Orphan 55. In fairness,
listen, my grandmother died of cancer, right? I've had family members. Listen, that disease runs through my family like bleeding bushfire. Seriously, it's bad. There's a I don't know what it is. It must be the gene in the family, but we've had a lot of members that have passed away, and I was very close to my nanny, so I lived lived with her and all for a while. So her death hit me hard, and it's an emotional time. See what cancer just doesn't just affect the person that has the illness. It also affects their family members, their friends. It does. It has a profound effect on everybody around them. And when I seen that scene, I got very angry, Eddie. And I don't get really look at people will accuse me of being an angry Irishman. I'm always complaining about Doctor Who, but this was the one thing that really hit me hard, and I got absolutely really. I never got that angry before about Doctor Who. Before. Now, Moffat done things that made me angry, but nothing compared to this. I was so incensed. It was just the whole scene was wrong, and to me, it showed everything that's wrong with Doctor Who right now. That scene.
I very much I hold that scene up, and talk about how it should have been done. And if you look at the episode. For the Capaldi episode, Death in Heaven, which is a very similar theme to it. And it's when basically Jenna or Clara is throwing the TARDIS keys away, and it turns out the Doctor's put a dream patch on her. And he says to her, "We're going to hell." And she goes, "That's fair enough." And as she's leaving the TARDIS, he says, "Where are you going?" She says, "I'm going to hell. That's what you told me." He said, "No, we're going to go to hell." And she says, "Well, after everything I've done, you're still going to help me." And he says, "Do you think I care so little for you that betraying me would make a difference?" Right? And that, for me, is the Doctor in a nutshell. Right? So I don't care how socially awkward the Doctor is, because Capaldi is sociopathically awkward sometimes.
He was the most socially awkward out of the new Who Doctors that we actually had.
At one point he had to have cards telling her, you know, saying how to behave.
That's what I mean.
You know, but he knew 100% how to deal with that situation. And, you know, there is no excuse, none at all, for the hero of your story to turn around and dismiss it. And I think what happened was, more than anything else, Chibnall took his eye off the ball with regards to how to deal with it. He was too busy dealing with the youngsters situation that he decided that, and because that was mental health rather than anxiety, it was something that he could make a joke out of. And it's not funny. It is not funny. You know, exactly. and there's nothing funny about it. And he used the Doctor for that. You know, you could have understood the Doctor maybe, you know, awkwardly trying to hug him or shake his hand or go to hug him, or he goes to hug and she goes to shake his hand and make it an awkward kind of, there's a joke to be had there. But, you know, if she'd have said, I wrote a scene that, you know, about how she could have done it 1,000,000,000 times better by saying how indomitable humans were. And, you know, the Doctor's used that line a couple of times. And, you know, Utopia and Ark in Space, where, you know, humans are indomitable, they go through that stuff. I don't know how you do it. You know, if I get ill, I regenerate, I change. You have to live with this. That's extraordinary. She could have done that. I don't know. She could have said, I don't know what to say to you because I have no reference for this, but you're an extraordinary person. You know, she could have done that, and I'd have went, you know, fair enough. That's okay.
I think with the Doctor, might be all of those things that she says socially awkward, might make mistakes, but when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to the real, when the Doctor is needed, the Doctor always says the right things. It was the same with Pearl Mackie in season 10, where he punches the racist. Remember, he gives the whole speech beforehand, but then when he's confronted with this racist, what does he do? He knocks the racist. He steps up to the plate, he does, and he knocks the racist out. I mean, look, there's Chris Chibnall, to me, just doesn't understand, and it's shocking because for me, he's a fan. He's supposed to be a fan like us all. Now, I'm not denying he isn't a fan because clearly he is, but to get it so wrong, to misjudge or to believe that, because everything he's writing is what he believes the Doctor should be, just totally goes against everything that we believe the Doctor is. And I just don't get how BBC have allowed. Look, Series 11, right? Look, no matter how bad Series 11 is for me, right? I will give him credit for one thing. He did try something different. It didn't work, okay? It didn't work, right? But he can be applauded for trying to do something different. Series 12, he tried to give us a bit more of the familiar. You know, remember, during Series 11 and all the interviews, he kept saying, no, I'm not bringing back the Weeping Angel. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that, right? I'm not bringing back the Daleks, this, that, and the other. Series 12 then, well, we obviously had this special first, and then that was the first time we were introduced to the Daleks. Then, obviously, Series 12, then he started giving us a bit more of the familiar. And it looks like, again, for Series 13, we've already confirmed already, we've got the Santarans coming back. We've got the Weeping Angels coming back. So he's going back to try to test it. And again, another mistake that he's made. In each season, I think he's done a historical episode and he's got it badly wrong. And another writer as well that he's had in 2 seasons, which to me has written 2 of the worst episodes of the current era, if not in Doctor Who's history, is Ed Hyam. And apparently he's slated to write another episode.
Oh, he's writing an episode,
Now, in fairness, if that man got wrong twice, you wouldn't give him another chance, man. This is the thing. He's making the wrong decisions every time. I wouldn't mind if you... Look, here's the thing, right? You've even said it yourself. The specials seem to be where he seems to get things not 100% right, but he does better at the festive specials than he does with the main show. If he kept away, I'm not saying he doesn't have to do it yet, but if he kept away from trying to preach to the audience and he might give us something that's passable, it's still not good enough, though. I mean, RTD set the bar New Who, in my opinion. If you're not even getting close to that, well, then you shouldn't be writing Doctor Who, in my opinion. And I don't think he even gets close. I don't even think he gets close to Moffat, really. But what do you think? Because, I mean, look, that's where I stand right now. I don't want Doctor Who to go off the air, Eddie. I really don't. But if this is the only way to get rid of the, as you said, the Chris Chibnall stink, and wait and then bring it back refreshed, then I'm all for it. But but we're going to be gone without 5 years of Doctor Who, whatever it is, and I just, and with the way the world is shitty and stuff, things like Doctor Who were supposed to be escapism. Yeah. And I just wish it went back to those times where, we can just forget about all the shit that's going on in their countries. Turn on the TV for 45 minutes an hour and just forget about our worries.
I have to say, I'm very much... Doctor Who really disappoints me. And as you know, I'm not one for jumping on this kind of zeitgeist bandwagon.
Oh, yeah, no.
And I've criticised people like Gary and Nerdrotic and Bolstrek and Rabbi.
Yeah, you've even called me out as well.
I don't have an issue with Discovery, for instance, Star Trek Discovery. I don't have an issue with that at all. I like that. I think that they learned lessons for season 1 and then season 2 and season 3, and they've certainly learned a lesson, or are learning lessons from, and it's evolving, and I like where it's going to. It's not 100% great, and it's still got a lot of wokeness in it that's unnecessary, but it's better. You can see it changing. The same as the CW. I mean, Batwoman is a pile of shite, but the rest of it is very good. You know what I mean?
I'm going to watch one episode of that Batwoman.
Oh, it's awful.
It's bad.
Awful.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, and that is as bad as it gets. That's Doctor Who level bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. There's a lot of stuff like that, but I don't really mind a lot of stuff. I don't get the problem with, things like, I really love WandaVision. I really love Winter Soldier and
I did like WandaVision myself. Listen, I was blown away by WandaVision. I don't necessarily get all the hate for it either myself.
I don't understand it. There's been lots of things that I've saw that, there's this, I don't know what they call the fandom menace or some phantom menace. And they complain constantly about everything that comes out, and I just thought Star Wars. I quite like The Rise of Skywalker. I know it's a piece of nonsense, but it's a fucking Star Wars film. What are they expecting? Jaws. It's Star Wars. It's set in space. Behave yourself. It's not meant to be taken seriously. You go there and you enjoy it, and that's it. I don't really get the constant bickering and fighting and rage about things. But Doctor Who is close to my heart, and if I could find anything good in it, I would find that goodness in it, and I would hang on to it. I thought we were getting there with the Haunting of Villa Diodati.
Yeah,
in my opinion, is a very, very, very good
close.
It's as best as it's been. They say, I remember discussing, I think it was with yourself on a kind of joint thing we had way back at the start with Spyfall as well. Yeah. And I was really impressed with Spyfall. I thought, that's okay.
Part 1 was great.
They've learned.
Yeah.
Little did we know what was coming.
Oh my God, part 2 just undone everything. And
then after that, you had the fucking Orphan 55.
Wow.
And then you had, was it Judoon after that? And you just go, oh my goodness, what's going on? Right? And it just got worse and worse and worse.
He undone his good work in the
first. And then I actually was okay with Ascension of the Cybermen for a fair bit of it. Do you know? And I thought, this is okay. I kind of see
until he did what I think is unforgivable. I'm sorry, but I cannot comprehend the fact that he put dead Time Lords into cyber.
And Sanity, it makes no sense.
And now they can regenerate. And they can regenerate, but also the Cybermen now can augment onto dead flesh, apparently.
That makes no sense.
Explain that one to me.
And another thing was that Graham hid in a Cyberman outfit. How do you do that? Because a Cyberman outfit's meant to be like the Borg inside it. It's meant to be all, if you look at Age of Steel, it was like the whole neural net, the whole nerve system of that human is inside that. It's not an empty shell. And then you had that bit where Graham just sat Yazdan and told everybody how good she was. What the fuck was that about?
But again, within that, Eddie, the kind of new Cybermen design.
Right, until they put the stupid collars on them.
Yeah, forget about the stupid columns. But I have to be honest, at first I wasn't in love with them but I've kind of grown to like them because they do kind of. The one thing I will say about Chris Chibnall's era is, and we've already seen the Sontarans are redesigned as well. He does seem to have, when it comes to certain things like that, he does seem to have a knack for getting things like that right.
Well,
I mean,
see,
the new Cyberman design does look odd. The new Sontaran design does look interesting, but it does have a classic throwback, and I do like it.
But they're too tall.
Yeah.
Right. So if Sontarans are clone batches, and I get the clone batches will change wherever you go, right? I understand that, right? However, Kevin Lindsay was the first two Sontarans. He was Steyr, and he was Lynx, and then he was Steyr, right? So he's the kind of size, and when they brought them back in the Poison Earth, the Poison Sky, what was it? Poison.
Yeah. No, I know.
Sontaran Stratagem, right? So when you bring them back in that, they're great. They're fantastic in that episode, right? Moffat ruined the Sontarans. He made them a joke.
I know.
Right? And in fact, it was one Sontaran, effectively. Right?
Yeah, but that one Sontaran, let's be honest, before you continue your point, but that one Sontaran is a funny Sontaran.
No, he's great, and the guy who plays him is brilliant. You know, the guy who plays him,
brilliant, man.
You know, the guy who plays him is brilliant.
Yeah.
And I don't have an issue with that, you know, but they were a joke. And then when they showed up in Time of the Doctor, it turns out it's all Sontarans because it was the same, you know, so it was that clone.
Yeah.
But you know, and I kind of get it, but I think they wasted it. And I've always said that the Sontarans could be the Klingons of the Doctor Who world. You know, it could easily be that bigger race. Right. They've got an impact.
Because they have the same kind of culture. They have the same kind of way of culture and the same way of thinking. Kind of, you're right.
Either them or the Ice Warriors are basically Klingons for Doctor Who. They could easily be Klingons. Ice Warriors are maybe more like it because they've got a kind of similar caste system, and they've been good ones and bad ones all the way through the season. You know, and when you look at Cold War, that episode, you know, there's and Empress of Mars. When you talk to the you know, they're not particularly bad or good, they're just militaristic, you know, and that's happened all the way back with Ice Warriors. So they're probably more Klingon-like. But if you were going to push the Sontarans, they've definitely got that about them, you know. But you know, and I quite like the design of the new ones. I didn't have an issue with the old design.
But they're too tall. But do you think? But hold on, though. I want to ask you though, because this is the thing. They might look too tall to us, but they might do when we see them on screen. They might be actually smaller.
They might CGI them smaller. They could do. Apparently, there's a lot of women inside them. There's a lot.
There is. I got a hold of a few photos, and that actually they're all women. So which was interesting in itself. Listen, I've no problem who plays a bleed, who's underneath the Sontaran. If they can give a great performance as the Sontarans, who gives a crap if it's a woman, a man, or whatever underneath the costume? But
you got to ask yourself,
it does get heightened, and it is made a big deal out of. Like,
are they going to be female Sontarans? Or that's the thing, because normally,
again, we spoke about the gender when we broke stuff, and we got ridiculed on the channel because of it. But look, this could well may be the case. I mean, we don't, like yourself, Eddie, we don't report art unless we're told that look, we can go ahead with it. And we try to get try to, as much as possible, try to get other people to other sources like you have said, to see if there's anything in this. So, I mean, look, we spoke about that. I mean, it will be interesting to see what they do with the Sontarans. But if he starts making it about the gender of the Sontarans, right, then again, people are going to have a problem with that, Eddie, because the Sontarans shouldn't be used that way, though, anyway.
Well, specifically, it goes against the canon of Sontarans. Sontarans don't work like that. They're clone race. You know, they shouldn't be. It doesn't. That's not how they work. You know, that's. I mean, the whole thing about Strax was that Strax was genetically altered to be a maid nurse. It was a joke. It was his parents. Yeah. You know, that's the whole point of Strax is he's been.
Yeah, so he explains it anyway, doesn't he? He explains it when he's a clown bat, a Norse bat, from a clown. Yeah, so he explained that already. But,
so how does that work? It doesn't work. It makes no sense. And that's what
doesn't give a crap about canon. We already know that, right? I mean, that's the sad thing about this. And we've had other people come out that have worked on the show in the past come out and support them as well by saying things about canon as well. Look, we already know that Doctor Who canon is already complicated enough as it is, right? And it does contradict itself, right? But there is a core canon there, right? The Doctor is from Gallifrey, right? The Doctor, the Master is from Gallifrey. But look, if you want to make the Master the timeless child, I'm happy with that. But not the Doctor. I mean, look, it will, for me, it will, not to us fans, it never will belittle their legacy, but every other person that's played the Doctor beforehand's legacy, in my opinion, will be tainted. And there's no need for it. Even BBC themselves kind of contradict themselves still to this day, because they still use the numbering system. When they, even with the calendars, like Hartnell is still the first Doctor. Like, so he's January, the first month of the calendar, but like, and Capaldi is 12. Like, that's...
I think you might find that the Timeless Children is, I don't want to say retconned, but re-explained in season 13.
And listen, we don't mind a bit of mystery. Look, here's the thing, right? For me, it's like the whole Darth Vader thing when he did the prequel trilogy for me years back, right? When he kind of explained, when we got to see the origins of Darth Vader, and then we kind of seen him being put together, that kind of ruined the lore for me and the mystery around Vader, right? It's the same with Doctor Who. If you do this, right, you're ruining the mystery. It doesn't, as some people have said, it reinforces the mystery. No, it doesn't reinforce the mystery. What? He's from a different planet and he's a refugee, and that's supposed to be a mystery?
Andrew Cartmel spoke to me about this. I discussed this with Andrew with regards to the Cartmel master plan. And I said, do you think that Chibnall is upholding your legacy, your master plan? And he said no, because he would never have dreamed of exposing that, regardless of what they were saying about the Doctor. It was only ever going to be hints. He was never going to say, oh, this is the Doctor. I mean, I know that it's kind of been established in the New Adventures that the Doctor was eventually came from the Other, and he was reloomed into the Doctor, and there's a whole backstory there. But, that's the New Adventures. You take that or you leave it. It's up to you. If they done something like that with the Timeless Children, I would be okay with that as well. But, if the fact is that, Joe Martin or whatever the last Doctor was, is just basically, mind wiped, regenerated into Bill Hartnell and told to carry on, that to me is quite insulting to the first 12 Doctors.
It is.
And by the way, it's not even the first 12 Doctors. It's insulting to the first 13 Doctors, because if Joe Martin comes before Jodie Whittaker in any shape or form, she takes away Jodie Whittaker's...
Exactly. That's what I don't understand about this. He made such a big deal about Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, and then if he was to go and do something like that, well, then he's undermining Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, and he's actually kind of... as you said, being disrespectful to her Doctor as well. No matter what we think about her Doctor, like, still, you've made the point, and I agree with you. No matter what I think, I can say in my own head she isn't the Doctor and she's not my Doctor or not all of this. But at the end of the day, as you rightly pointed out, she is the Doctor no matter what we say. She was cast, she is Dr. 13, and that's the end of it. But if you were to put Jo Martin before her or put her before even Bill, it is disrespectful. It is. Jo Martin should be able to rise up as a Doctor in her own right. She shouldn't have to play a supplement to Whittaker, or Whittaker shouldn't have to play a supplement to her. You know what I mean? It's disrespectful, and this is what I've said, and I get criticised for it. He's being disrespectful.
Think how good it could have been if Jo Martin was an alternate universe Doctor.
I know.
Think of the faces you could put in that canon.
I know.
You could pick all the people you ever wanted to be the Doctor.
Exactly.
Joanna Lumley. You could have, you could have Gillian Anderson in there.
Exactly.
You could have anybody you like. Just, you don't even need to cast them. Just put a picture of them up. Just show them as being previous Doctors or future Doctors in that timeline.
In that timeline, in that universe.
Fantastic.
Exactly. Do a multiverse thing. I'm telling you, man.
And also, if you have a multiverse thing, then Peter Cushing suddenly becomes a canon Doctor.
Then he becomes canon. Exactly.
And it's
Martin
brilliant.
tried to do it before in his era with a poster or something. He tried to make him canon, but he came into some
canon in as much as the
as
series,
possible,
the television existed.
But you're right. That could work in an entirely different universe.
Did you see the CW Crisis in Infinite? Well, I mean, famously, there's Crisis in Infinite Earth, isn't there? The DC, thing, and the CW did a version of it, where you had lots of different Green Arrows and you had lots of different Flashes, and you saw the Flash, Grant Gustin meet Ezra Miller, as two different Flashes from two different universes, both valid, both exist, but neither break the other one's canon.
Exactly.
And Doctor Who, it's built for this. The TARDIS is its very name is dimensions in time.
This is why I say it. BBC don't even know what they have on their hands. Me and you should just take over the bloody show. Seriously,
it's an easy thing. That makes Joe a legit. And the fact is that Chibnall might be lying when he's turning around and says Joe's not an alternate version of the Doctor. But she should have said that, though. He shouldn't have said that, because I'd have been all for that. And then you've got that. You can have where the Doctor's timeline took a different route and he was mostly female. You could have like a Hugh Grant just pop up in the middle of that, no problem. People who'll never be the Doctor now, as I put up a couple of weeks ago on Twitter, which people, this is another thing about Twitter that done my head in. I said, who could have been the Doctor but missed out? And what I got was a lot of people telling me who they wanted to be the Doctor.
Yeah, Hugh Grant was one of them.
Yeah, Hugh Grant
his agent apparently didn't tell him. He said it in an interview, and I was like, holy crap, imagine if we had got Hugh Grant as the Doctor.
He was approached before Eccleston approached Russell T.
Davies.
And there's a few. One of the also rans, believe
Robert Carlyle is another one I'd love to see.
Peter Capaldi should have been the Doctor in 1996, but he knocked back the audition.
Yeah,
because he said if he had not got it, he'd have been devastated. So he knocked it back. So he could have been the Doctor 20 years earlier. There's lots of actors, and you could put them all in a timeline somewhere along the lines. Miriam Margolyes would have been. Miriam Margolyes would be another fantastic Doctor. There's just so many actresses that could do the role.
I would have loved to see Rowan Atkinson, and secretly would love to see him and a version of his Doctor.
Well, you could always have the
comic relief,
the Curse of the Fatal Death as a timeline down that. It could exist. Yeah. There's nothing to stop it if you opened up a multiverse of Doctors.
True.
You can have everyone who's ever played it. Trevor Martin could be the Doctor in a multiverse somewhere. And it could work for so many different. It could kill off any kind of issue you had. Remember the faction paradox have changed time. The time war has changed time. If you follow any of the Time War stuff on Big Finish, it's constantly rewriting its own canon. Time Lord Victorious has changed time. As I say, the faction paradox has changed it. The Pandorica has changed time. There's so many things in the Doctor's past that has changed it. When is Unit Unit in the early 70s or the early 80s? Because if you ask Sarah Jane in the Pyramids of Mars, she comes from 1980, yet it's set in 1976. However, in the mid 1980s, the Brigadier says he's recently retired. But that was before he actually took over Unit. So none of it makes any sense time-wise. So all these things are there to be changed and looked at. And if you just said there's a multiverse out there, you know, and these people, this cannon busting stuff comes from all those Morbius faces, Universe 25.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just say that. That's all you need to do. Gallifrey 12. You know?
Do you know what the worst thing about it is? There's so much potential there.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of Doctor Who fans, especially you guys as well, the ones that have been around during the heyday of the classic era, BBC have always kind of mismanaged this show. Now, they have got it right on occasion, but I mean, look, even during the 50th anniversary year, Moffat's season, it was dipping in ratings, but it wasn't catastrophic as it is today. But even then, with all the promotion that they had, I thought they missed a big opportunity there to start branching out. I mean, there's so much potential there with Doctor Who, with multiverses, loads of different spin-off shows, right? And you look at it now and you just wonder why idiots have been allowed to make decisions for this show.
The problem is now,
the
problem with Doctor Who now, and it's been the problem for a long time, is it's made by fans. Okay, so if you look at Doctor Who in the past, David Whittaker, Bob Holmes, Barry Letts, Terence Dicks, you know, these guys, Andrew Cartmel, Jonathan Turner, Christopher H. Bidmead, Eric Sword, none of these people were fans of Doctor Who. Andrew Cartmel didn't watch it before or after. Do you know
That's what I mean?
Right. He told me that just a few weeks ago. I didn't watch it before and I rarely watch it now. You know what I mean? And so he's not a fan of Doctor Who, but he's an extraordinarily good showrunner for this series.
Yeah, and he loved, listen, the one thing that came across in that interview was that even though he wasn't a fan, you could tell that he was very passionate and he was fully committed to when he was on the show, and he did enjoy his time on the show, even though he had so many problems, and he openly admitted that they had problems, but he really did enjoy it, and his enthusiasm still comes true to this day. I mean, he would be, look, for me personally, I don't know if the two of them could work together, but for me, if Chris Chibnall wanted to learn from his past mistakes, he should be tapping into people like an Andrew Cartmel, someone that's enthused as he is. I mean, he was, the joy on his face every time he spoke about his time on Doctor Who just came across, Eddie. And that's what kind of fans feel as well, that the people that are writing it now, you don't see that kind of enthusiasm, that joy, or any of that sort of thing that you see from Cartmel.
I think you'll find that Doctor Who fans or Doctor Who alumni from the past really don't want to be associated with Doctor Who anymore. When I spoke to Rona Munro, who had obviously written Survival and also wrote The Eaters of Light for Capaldi's era, when I asked her, would she write for Chibnall, she absolutely said no.
Wow.
So, we discussed from a technical point of view, a female doctor, and what we discussed about whether a female doctor and a female companion can work together. We both agreed it didn't. She said that we come from an era or an age where gender is different to us than it is to modern children.
Yeah.
And that's fine, that's agreed. But she said that she wouldn't write for Doctor Who now.
Wow.
So that for me is very telling.
Yeah.
I don't think I think I can speak for Andrew. He wouldn't have anything to do with it at the moment either. So this is not new, and when we discussed, I spoke to John Colshaw as well, as you know, and John Colshaw is heavily involved in the Big Finish and what have you. And John was unaware of some of the stuff that had happened in season 12 because he hadn't watched it. Now, John Colshaw is a famous celebrity fan of Doctor Who, who brings out new Doctor Who on a regular basis with Big Finish.
He does the voice, doesn't he, of Tom Baker and other doctors,
Well, he doesn't so much play Tom anymore because Tom tends to do that, but he plays the Brigadier. He plays Brigadier of different ages. If you've not seen that interview, I'd ask you to go and watch it, because he actually does a masterclass on how the Brigadier used to talk and how he spoke near the end of his life. And the one time I spoke to Nick Courtney was quite close to the end of his life, when I was trying to get an interview for Face to Face, and he was too ill to do it, but he'd called me, and I spoke to him, and it was like listening to him, and it was goosebumps. So he discusses how different Nick spoke through his life, and how he changes his voice. You know, if he's got Nick from Tom's era, it's been a certain way. If it's from Pat's or John's era, he's kind of a lot more clipped. And you know, by the time he's with Sarah Jane, he's a lot more elder statesman. So when he's when he's in kind of battlefield mode, if you like, it's a different Nick.
Yeah, I watched him in Battlefield last night.
So so John Coltrane plays him. He plays the Third Doctor quite a bit as well. Sometimes in things you wouldn't think it was him, but it is. And he reads a lot of audio books as well. So you know, that's another side of things that he does, and does a lot of the voices there. I listened to one recently as well, some talent experiment. He'd done that as well, which is good to hear him doing Ian Martyr as well, which is an extraordinary thing to behold. So when you listen to that, and you know how big a fan John Coltrane is, and then he turns around and says, "I've not really watched Chibnall's era," you know, you've got to ask yourself why.
Yeah. I still, you know, I've watched Series 11, and I have watched the specials, and I have watched Series 12, but I tell you one thing, it's been insufferable. Just, and people say, why do I keep watching it? Because I hope, and I still hope, that he gets it right. I don't think he ever will, to be quite honest. I wish he'd make the decision to leave. I hope he does after Series 13. There might be a possibility, as you said, might keep it on the TV, but I doubt that now. I just don't know. Everything is up in the air right now.
I can tell you, if he's the one to continue Doctor Who beyond Series 13, if a season 14 does emerge from this mess and it's Chibnall at the helm, I think I'm finished with it. That'll be me. And I've been a Doctor Who fan since 1970.
Wow.
And I think that will be it for me, because I cannot keep watching this. He has done, you know, he has, in my book, he's destroyed it. It's finished. It's over. Until he goes, I mean, I think we're going to have to suffer the 8 episodes or 7 episodes he ends up churning out, you know, just now. We'll have to suffer it. We'll have to suffer Joe Whittaker as well, Jodie Whittaker. You know, the quicker she goes, the better as well. And I'm sorry about that, but
for her own career's sake, anyway, I think she should, because I don't think this, even putting Doctor Who on the CD now, I don't think is going to do her any favors.
Well, she's the face of the series now, mate. You know, at the end of Series 11, I would have given her, you know, if she'd have changed by the end of Series 11, I could have probably forgiven her Series 12. I could have forgiven that. But she's doubled down on how she plays the Doctor, you know, and it's wrong for the role. And she's now, you know, heading for her 3rd season. It should be her last. You know, it's all extents and purposes. Everything I hear is her last, and that's good. You know, it'll depend. You know, Chibnall's approach. If he's the one that manages to keep a hold of Doctor Who, it will depend on his approach. To Series 14, if it ever comes about.
Well, he is a bit of a, don't like to say this about anybody, but he is a bit of a slithery one. But I won't say it out straight. But he is a slithery one. I wouldn't be surprised if he survives.
He's walked away from it the last 2 years. And been talked back. I don't know why he's getting talked back.
Listen, if he walks away this time, BBC, if anybody is listening, if he don't talk him back, let him go, because I honestly believe if you keep him on, and Eddie does have a point, like, it's going to be very. I don't think I could do another series after Series 13 of Chibnall. I don't think I'd have the emotional will to do it. It'd be done for me as well.
For me, it's a bit more logical for me, mate. I've always said, why would I watch something I don't like?
You
know. So, and I've never understood anyone who sits and moans about something that they don't like. And as I say, I've sat and criticised, you know, people that you're friends with, you know, like Bolstrek and what have you. And I've said, well, if you don't like the fucking thing, stop watching it and moan about it, you know. And that for me, it's like people that get out of their way to see. I don't like curry, for talking sake. I just don't like it. I don't know why. My wife can't figure out why I don't like curry, but I don't like it. But I'm not going to go into a curry house and buy a curry and then complain that I don't like it. I'll just not go to a fucking curry house. I'll go to an Italian's or I'll go to Chinese instead. Do you know, I wouldn't go into a curry house, buy a curry, and then go, fucking, I don't like that. Why on earth would you give me that? But that, for me, is what people who complain about a show they don't like do. You know, so for me, from now on, you know, Chibnall's got one last chance. He's got 8 episodes to prove me wrong. He won't, from what I'm hearing, he won't. You know, and then if he carries on after that, I won't be back until Doctor Who changes hands, if it ever does. And if that's how Doctor Who ends for me after 40 years, 40 odd years, more than that, 47 years, 48 years, then so be it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
You know, and Chibnall has ruined it. He's ruined it for me. He's ruined it for millions of people. It's not just me. You know, as you know, I think now that Tom Vance's gang of bullies have kind of dissipated into eating themselves alive, things have changed a little bit. You know, and if you look at fandom out there, you know, even those guys are now starting to go, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't know. You know, they're not as fervently following her because they're not scared that Tom Vance is going to put their name on Twitter again and have a pile up on them. Yeah. So they're keeping themselves a bit more. I was looking at Tom Harris's feed earlier on today, and you know, Tom is, I mean, I don't have much issues with Tom Harris myself, but I know that you have had in the past, and you know, but if you look at his thread, he's been openly critical about the era recently, and that seems to come from a renewed sense of freedom that a lot of the guys have got, the younger guys have got, because they don't have people like Not My Doctor, you know, targeting them. So they can say what they like a bit more, and underneath it there's a lot of criticism from younger fans. So it's not just us, you know, and we were the ones that were brave enough to say it at the time, but it's not just us, and it'll be, you know, I think you will find Doctor Who will be very niche when it comes back. It's going to have been off air for almost 2 full years. It's not going to be back until October, probably at the earliest. Probably later than that. It's only going to be back for a short time, you know, and it's going to be very niche when it comes back. It's going to have the lowest viewing figures it will ever have had, and it's probably going to be on at a really bad time, like 5 o'clock on a Sunday night.
Oh,
you know?
Man,
so it's going to be, it'll be awful. Awful. Yeah. And there's nothing that I've seen that's going to change that. He's been told to fix the Timeless Children thing. When he was told to put more continuity in it, he caused the Timeless Children. So it's almost like he deliberately swings the other way just for badness. So we'll see what he does.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I think we've covered everything now anyway today. But you've obviously been on your channel lately doing some interviews. So is there anything you have coming up that you can talk about, or is there anything that they should look out for in your channel in the future?
Yeah, we decided not to follow this route that you do when we you know, doing the commentary and what have you. There's too many channels out there like that, and we were all bumping into each other. And I frankly don't have the energy or the giving a fuckness about it to take on that, if I'm honest with you. So we've cancelled our StreamYard subscription. We've been using Zoom to do our interviews, which is working quite well for us. I have at least another 2 interviews coming up in May, I think. Sometimes the interviews are quite difficult. I mean, John Colshaw took about 4 weeks to get organised, you know, after it had been agreed. So you know, it's quite hard to get hold of these people. Rona Monroe and I have been talking for about 6 months before I actually got her on. I think we ended up getting her on at like 2 o'clock on a Friday, and then we had to put it out later on. So I've got to be quite, I work in a real job during the week. So sometimes it's difficult to get away for an hour to do the interview. So, but I've got a transatlantic interview coming up. It's a double header coming up in a few weeks' time, sometime in May, hopefully. So less than 3 weeks away. And I've also got one from the classic era of Who lined up as well. It should have actually happened, and we're a bit behind on that one. So that's what's happening. I'm not particularly going to do these forever. It was an idea to do them through March. It's now May. Yeah. I'm still doing them. I was basically talking to Andrew Cartmel. I love talking to Andrew. As I said at the end of my last one, don't leave it so long the next time, and John Colshaw and I have been talking privately for a long time. And he was really keen to get on and discuss Doctor Who as a fan, rather than, I discussed with John. I said, look, I don't want you to come on and say, and how would Donald Trump have dealt with that, and then do an impression. I didn't want a performing monkey. I wanted to talk to a fan about Doctor Who, and hopefully that's what Derek and I did. So we're not going to do many of these kind of talking head things that we used to do, back in the day. We might do them again when Doctor Who comes back on the air. We might do. If anything comes up in the meantime, we might do some of that. But we don't really, as I said to you before, I'm not chasing followers on Talk to Doctor. It's too much like hard work for me, and I really can't be bothered with it. It becomes a pain. I have so much admiration for likes of yourself who can do this on a daily or bi-daily. I couldn't do it. But certainly we've got another 2 or 3 interviews coming up. I probably am kind of getting into the habit of doing them again. I've done them for my book and I really enjoyed them, but I kind of do a thing where I arrange them and I'm keen to do them, and then as they're coming up, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to go and talk to this person, and I really like them and they're quite famous, and I'm quite embarrassed, and I end up kind of feeling terrible about going into it, and then great at the end of it. But I really enjoyed my last few. As we spoke to Chris Thompson again from Eagle Moss as well, which was really interesting. Derek did that interview, which was how Eagle Moss look at the perception of Doctor Who and what they can pull out as merchandise. Really, really interesting. A big long interview, that one. I've talked to Rona Munro, John Colshaw as well, and Andrew Cartmel were my 3 biggies that I did. I really enjoyed talking to them all separately for different reasons. It's always a thrill, and as I say, I've got another one from the classic era coming up, and one that's not classic but is transatlantic, so that's really interesting. And I've got a few feelers out for different things. Chris Eccleston will be interviewed by me before too long, I promise you that, because he has promised me an interview over and over again. So I'll get there with Chris eventually. I'll wait till he's got a book or something coming out and grab him for that. And there's him, and there's a few others I don't want to say, but fingers crossed we'll get these guys eventually. And as I say, I'm not particularly chasing them deliberately, but if they come up, then good stuff. And a few people like Andrew Cartmel and John Colshaw have asked to come back on when we do a review of one of the episodes. So when Doctor Who comes back on the air, we might jump on a kind of Talk to Doctor forum, see if I can get maybe yourself on as well, and maybe Andrew Cartmel or John Colshaw, and we'll all have a chat about that particular episode. And
that'd be fantastic.
I'll do what I can do. But as I say, always on Twitter, you get me, Eddie from TDTV, and more than happy to field people's questions and call people arseholes if they're an arsehole to me, because you know me, I don't miss you and hit the wall. But I'll be nice if people are nice.
That's it. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure having you on.
We said 40 minutes 2.5 hours ago.
I didn't think we'd be on this long, but that just goes to show you there was so much to actually talk about. It's been a long time since we caught up. But listen, obviously, interesting couple of weeks and months ahead for Doctor Who. We'll see where it goes. But right now, if I was to ask you of 100%, how optimistic are you for Doctor Who's future?
Right now, as it stands this weekend, there is no future. It's over at the end of the production of season 13. There is nothing else planned. Nothing.
Okay. And on that note, folks, but there you go. He tells it straight. But there you go, folks. That's been the Tardis Zone Talks. I hope you have enjoyed the stream. Don't forget to check out Eddie's YouTube channel, Talk to Doctor, and also his social medias on Twitter. And that's it. I'll be back tomorrow for we got some actually what I've decided to do is we're going to do New Who, and then straight after then we're going to be getting you guys on and getting your opinions about obviously what you've heard tonight on this stream. Yeah. So we'll see you. Have a good one. Enjoy your week. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. And we'll be back tomorrow. Again, Eddie, thanks for joining us. It was a pleasure having you on.
More than welcome. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.